Kyle, we've only ever really played video games or just sent snaps to each other, so I never actually like live interact with him face to face.
Oh, well, that's probably for the best.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait till I come up there and you know, interact with you face to face via us getting into a bar fight as two cishet men seem to do in any given
Double
circumstance.
rapscallions.
Well, I mean, as two alpha bros, we gotta, constantly flex our alphaness. Anyways. Sorry, I had a Amazon package.
I just finished
delivered.
my whole coffee, so.
Oh, well, I had an Amazon package delivered.
Oh, what did you get?
Ball trimmers.
Are you serious? So like the Manscaped thing?
Yes.
This week's sponsor?
Not necessarily for
Manscaped.
my testicles, but much more so for my obscene amount of body hair that I seem to have.
Is it just an angry Chewbacca down there?
All over, man. Being gay's hard, let me tell you.
No, I can't grow like chest hair or back hair or nothing.
Well, Matt has enough back
Nothing.
hair for the rest of us, so
No.
it looks like just looks like a whole gorilla back. It's just a bunch of big, stringy,
so.
long, old man back hairs.
That's me.
Anyways, okay, so I got this open, so
Right.
Are you going to give us a demonstration on how to use it, or
how to use what? Oh,
Your ball
that?
trimmer.
No.
Your Amazon package.
I pull out kiwis. All right, so
It's not even catching. It's crazy.
you see the hairs on here? Not even catching.
have you ordered off of Temu at all?
No. I don't
I have.
necessarily feel like getting scammed.
It's not a scam. I thought it was.
It seems sketchy, my dude.
It's basically just Americanized Wish. That's all it is.
Oh, well.
Before we get started, too, I have my AC on. It's hot as shit here. Can you hear it? Is it like blowing in the speaker?
I can hear it,
Yeah, we can
but I
hear
don't
it.
want you to die.
Yeah, that and
Whatever.
I think I can fix that post. I think I can get a lot of that white noise out. Oh,
right, we'll see
Kyle's,
how long-
look at Kyle. Kyle's
See
got
how
the
long it
like
lasts.
white. Lordy, it's hot in here.
Yeah, I turn off my AC just for this stuff too. So.
Um,
I respect-
try
Oh, turn it
living
off.
someplace where central AC is a thing. You fucking nerds.
I can't afford that.
Yeah, I'm in a 100-year-old house, brother.
Well, I mean, I guess we should go ahead and start and just get it straight out of the way. The first question we have for you, Matt, is when did your piss kink arrive? When did you get a piss kink?
A what?
Piss kink. Peeing on people in a
See,
sexually
this is
pleasing manner.
This is what we call in the business deflection, because Zach is a little piss baby, and he likes to project on everybody else.
Yeah, so Kyle, one of my favorite things to do is weekly I harass Matt and come up with false situations that I bully him over that never occurred.
He says weekly, but it's like every other day.
I mean, literally, though. Yeah. So, well, I guess it's let's get started. Now that we got his piss kinks out of the way. Okay.
So glad I'm here. So glad.
NerdPod, trust only in the pod. That was our intro.
Catchphrases.
Yeah. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. I'm Dak. That guy down there. Who's he? That's
I'm
you. Okay, I was gonna say, I don't know
Kyle.
how it arranges the video on your guys' screen. And then who's
I'm at the bottom.
who's that? Who's that right there?
Who's that?
There's Matt.
Hi Matt. Chicken. Company chicken.
Company
as we know
chicken.
him. Yeah. Matt and I have known each other for shit. What has it been? 4 years now. Been playing Destiny for almost 4 years.
Was it 18 or 19 that we started playing together?
I think it was. I'm trying to think. It actually might have been
At
18.
least 4. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's 5. I think at the end of 18.
Yeah, because we met through George.
Right.
Then he left us for other things.
Scumbag. I played with him the other night.
Yeah.
Hate him.
I know that fucking guy. Yeah, so we met through a mutual friend via playing Destiny, which is what we're going to be talking about today, which is Destiny. Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who the fuck are you? What the fuck are you doing here?
Living the dream on the pod here, trying to go above and beyond for a friend. No, I don't know.
Driving a Tesla?
Yeah, driving a Tesla, as Dak repeatedly loves to point out.
Yes.
No, I don't know. I'm playing vids, obviously, since I was a kid. Kind of got a wife and kids now, full-time job. Don't really have a ton of time to game, so I kind of pour myself into a singular game, and that's been Destiny since D1 beta.
Yeah.
I didn't play the alpha, but I played the beta. So.
Oh, well, you're not a real veteran then, so get out of here.
I know.
We'll go get a...
Why'd you even have me on? Why'd you even ask me?
Honestly, I don't know. Beta. Should have got an alpha. You know?
Really walked into that one.
Yeah. Well, what are you gonna do? Yeah. So you got some kids. That's cool. Tell us about that. I'm just kidding. Like, could you imagine that? Like the worst interview ever. Oh, that's cool. You're married. What's that like?
Yeah. That's great. Kyle, want to back me up on this at all? Or?
It's
Yeah. No, Kyle can't
it's
help
good.
you.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Okay. So like obviously games from whenever you were a kid, there's a little bit of an age gap between us and Kyle's between us. So there's like an age gap from me to Kyle to you. So obviously you've been playing games for a while.
Yep.
What are some of your classics or your favorites from your childhood video games wise?
I was like, so I started playing NES, like Super Mario Brothers, the
Yeah.
originals. Actually had an Atari, but I was really young. I think it was my dad was just like, ooh, this is a new thing.
Yeah.
But I was like too young to really appreciate it. But yeah, I played, NES, had Game Boys, and then Sega was where I really fell in love with video games. And the game of all games for me is still Maximum Carnage. It was a Spider-Man side-scroller, beat 'em up game.
Interesting.
And you could play as Spider-Man, you could play as Venom, and then you would get power-ups, and you could bring in other members of the Marvel Universe, and they would come back you up during big battles.
Oh,
and
that's
you would
cool.
Fight,
It was like
you'd fight Carnage at the end, and he was super powerful. Yeah.
like
Sounds cool.
pre-Avengers. Well,
Yeah.
Avengers.
Actually, Avengers was another
that was
Sega
kind of
game that I also really enjoyed.
Oh,
Yeah, but and then Metal Gear Solid going into place. I've always been a PlayStation guy, but I've had every iteration. I got a PS5 now. I don't play on the computer, but love playing Halo. Whenever I go to my friends' houses or in college or whatever, and obviously fell in love with Bungie, and now, like I said, Destiny is sort of like my end all be all for video games because it's the only thing I have time to dedicate meaningful time to. It's kind of like we were talking about beforehand. Like when I get into something, I dive deep into it.
Yes.
So I don't like to spread myself thin and get shallow experience in each one. The only exception I made to that kind of recently has been God of War, actually, because Ragnarok came out. So the first one I had downloaded a while ago. It was like a PS Plus game, for free, and I never played it. And oh my god, I'm playing through the game why did you wait so long to play this game? It's so good.
It's so good, man.
Yeah. So, but that's again, it's just because timing, and Destiny's a weekly thing, and it's a good I love playing games nowadays with friends.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Dak and I are really close. I've met Artie, another guy in our clan. He lives in another area of the country, and I've visited him twice. We're talking about going to visit another group of buddies in another area of the country, and got friends maybe coming here next summer. And these are all friends I met through Destiny. So that's where my gaming has evolved to, where it's definitely more of a communal thing for me.
That's super cool.
Yeah, digging into God of War was great because it kind of got back to the roots of single player just like running through a campaign with an incredible story and the set pieces and all that. It was an unbelievable game. But definitely, I've realized like how much I appreciate the gaming with friends.
Yeah.
And that extends into like Call of Duty. Like I'm terrible at COD now, and I'm not really good at like most PvP games, but it's an excuse to like play with friends, just mess around and like have beers and fun and whatever. Yeah. So like that's that's kind of where my game has evolved to nowadays.
I think some of the funnest nights that I've actually had have been probably like it started off with like our drunk raid nights, and then definitely some of the like funnest memories I have with you guys is whenever we would get like completely plastered and then decide, oh yeah, it's a great idea. Let's go play Warzone, the game that's famous for being very easy to play normally. Get completely plastered and then just see how we do.
Game's just like
yeah. It is pretty insane though. I mean, like think about that. Like, you know, I know that you've known a lot of the other guys for longer than you've known me, but 5 years, and especially up until, you know, until like 2023, I mean, shit, we used to play like every single fucking day. We would sit there and play Destiny for the most part, which is just crazy. And I think that like, I think for all of us, obviously COVID really like made us all get a lot closer since like our social circle became those of us who are playing Destiny. But like you said, it's just insane. It's insane to think that like I have very, very close friends between like you, Jericho, Darren, Sarah, like all these people that I consider like core in my like group of like inner circle. And the fact that like for most of you guys, I've never even physically met you guys, but like also this all just came up over a fucking video game. Like
crazy, right?
Yeah,
I know.
It's just like weird. And then like all of us from like all different walks of life, like you know, me and boring moving company stuff, you know, our friends. It's just like insane. Think of like of our group of people about how none of us in any given like any other circumstance would have ever like congregated towards each other. But the fact that like the video game brought us together is just, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, think about it too. Like, you know, we're playing with guys like Taz and even a little older, like Carl, like the age gap. I'm 20 years older than these kids. Like it'd be so weird if I was like, if I was just like, oh, I'm going to hang out with this teenager. Right.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, I don't know. Games is like just great, you know, I don't know.
To give some context, we have a friend, his name's Taz. He's technically still in high school, but I think when we all first started gaming with him, none of us knew that. Like none of us could gather that he was a child because he has like a deeper voice. So we thought he was just like, you know, some like 19, 20-year-old. And then it all realized, or it kind of like dawned on us that he was what, like 14, 15 at the time.
He was 14, yeah.
Yeah, it was just crazy.
Wow.
And he was like showing us up too. I think we started by doing like, I think he met you guys through doing like LFG and then started really playing with all of us whenever we would do those raid nights. And we're like, this fucking 14-year-old can hold his own when these like grown ass men are like dying every 5 seconds. So, you know, Destiny. But this is cool. How was everybody's weeks? Kyle, how was your week? You had a long week. Seemed
rough, very rough. Yeah, a lot of just crazy stuff happening at work, really.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna get too into it, but I kind of already told you. One of our coworkers is gone, just gone, and that's all I'm really gonna say about that.
Yeah.
Then our boss, Dak's favorite person in the world, decided to put in their notice, so they're gonna be gone.
And go work at the state after talking me out of going to work at the state.
Yeah. Well, it's like weird. It's like we kind of talked about it all the next day because it was sent on a Friday and not everyone was working.
Yeah.
We all like individually we're like, is the branch closing? And then we talked about it with each other, and they're like, no, everything's cool. And I was like, I've been thinking it's gonna close for like a year now. So. Yeah.
I can't.
I mean,
I can't comment on that. You know, legal reasons, but yes.
Yeah, and then we're getting. What was I talking about? Work. I just completely spaced on what I was talking about. What happened at work?
I mean, it was just that was the highlights for me. I think it was just that, and then your guys' is just really long work days.
Oh, and then we're gearing up for my wife's second surgery next week.
Oh, okay.
So,
yep.
Yeah, Yeah, dealing with that, and
Not an opportune time for that. That's for sure.
no, and I'm gonna be working out of town most days. Like they already kind of took Jeremy and I aside, and we're like, "You're gonna be fucked for August." So
Why?
just we're out of town, we're overnight. It's just a lot of like it's good hours, but like I'm hardly gonna be home.
Yeah.
And then good news.
Yes.
Not work related. So I bought a lightsaber from Timu, right?
Okay.
And it wasn't really like bad or anything like that. It just wasn't really what I wanted, but it changes all the colors and stuff. I gave it to our 7-year-old,
Okay.
and out of nowhere, she's like, "I want a Star Wars birthday party," and I was like, "You've never
Bro.
never
wanna
watched
come.
a single thing. Never watched a single thing. It's not going to happen unless you watch the stuff with me." So we sat down.
Got the in.
We sat down, watched episode 1 of The Phantom Menace.
Okay. Okay.
It's like, and she can't pay attention to anything. She actually sat down, watched it all with us.
Asked you what midichlorians
So like,
were.
I'm going through this again, watching it all again, and
Yeah.
I'm like, Jar Jar Binks doesn't even bother me. I don't get the outrage or anything. Like,
Which we'll talk about soon. Yeah. That's one of the things we're going to talk about in the news.
but it was So we're going through and
That's awesome.
watching it with her, and she seemed to like it. She's like, "Well, do I have to watch the rest?" I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Here's the most important question: who's Anakin Skywalker? The little boy. It's like, okay, why is he important? He's flying a ship. It's like, no, you got to watch the rest.
Yes. Minus the last 3 movies. Because, we can skip over that. We don't really need that to teach them about Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool though. That's cool.
Yeah. And then playing Dungeons and Dragons tonight, so that's
fun.
all good.
Fucking nerd. What about you, Matthew?
I've been living that fintech bro life big time. I've been working till midnight pretty much every night for the last 2 weeks. It's been brutal. Wow. So this is a nice little reprieve to just turn my brain off.
Turn your brain off, drink a beer in the middle of the afternoon, which feels weird.
Several.
This feels weird.
It's a good excuse.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
Babe, they told me how to take shots. Yeah.
No. That was another thing we used to do during COVID is just like shots.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1s.
Yeah.
And then,
It would be like casually just like 3:00 on a Saturday. That's a hyperbole, but still.
Yeah. Not good.
You and the bottle of Jameson. I feel like if I were to get you a Christmas gift, it would just be like a necklace, but it was like a necklace that had a big Jameson bottle on it. Just so you could wear it around all the time.
Oh, just like a big chain
with a Jameson bottle on it. Yes.
Yeah.
Nothing screams big chain like me. I just give up that.
Fintech bro out there with his big chain.
Old white Jewish married guy just screams bottle of JMO.
Oh, definitely.
JMO Shlomo. That was a pretty good one. Come on.
That was good.
That was a good one. Okay, well, yeah. So that's pretty cool. I didn't do shit this week. I think I just sat around, got baked, played with my dog, went back to work.
Did you see Oppenheimer?
I did. Oh shit! Whoa! Yeah, I did. Dude, fuck.
Yeah, I listen to the pod.
That's a good fucking movie, bro. Like really fucking good. I mean,
so is it an action movie or is it just a bunch of dialogue? Like, is it a thriller? I have no idea. Like, I know like who Oppenheimer is and all that, but what kind of movie is it?
It's everything. It's everything in one movie. It's amazing. Honestly, so like it is. I mean, okay, like backing up. I admit that like anything that Christopher Nolan is going to come out with, even if it's a dog shit movie, I'm going to think it's amazing. It's kind of like Bungie. Bungie could completely flop on any single game at any single given moment, and I'm still going to say like I would die for Bungie. Like Nolan's directing style and his artistic style like is just incredible to begin with. But then you take a movie which we kind of got like previews with Dunkirk, where it escaped the fantasy that he normally does and grounds itself in reality in a still very like Christopher Nolan-esque way, which makes just like a truly visually stunning movie from start to finish. Not only like visually is it just pleasing, stunning between the palettes, between the shots, between the cinematography, but he used zero CGI in the entire movie, which is just insane. So everything from like scenes of showing like quantum entanglement, like it's just incredible. It's incredible what they did with like classic visual effects to create such an incredible movie. So like not only is the movie incredible, not only are the characters so well done and the actors so dedicated to their craft, but then the score just elevates everything in the movie from like a 99 to like 110. And it's actually Ludwig Göransson who did the score, who is the same guy who's done like Mandalorian since season 1.
Childish Gambino.
Yes. So it's just like it's just insane. It's so good. It's so fucking good. And even though it is a 3-hour movie, I am going to go see it probably next weekend. And I would venture to say that I'm probably going to see it a few more times while it's in theaters. I did that with Interstellar, and I'll probably do that again with Oppenheimer. It's just so fucking good. It's so good. It's such a good movie. Also, no other movie in Hollywood that's come out like with a major release has like accurately represented sound. And I say that in the sense of like explosions. So like in any given Hollywood media, you have a big explosion and then immediately the sound exists with the explosion that you're seeing on the screen, right? But reality, which most people know this, that's not how sound works. So when they have scenes of something blowing up, there's a delayed sound response, even to like from that object blowing up to like physically hearing that explosion as a means to like represent sound waves and how that affects everything. So in the scene where they do the Trinity test, obviously goes into slow motion. I don't know how they did the shot, but they did the shot really awesome too, where it looks like a legit atomic bomb explosion, but not. But even just, it's just how they did the sound from when people are seeing the bomb go off like 30, 60, how many ever miles away, then the immense shockwave that hits. It's just incredible. There's like a scene where it's like 45 seconds of silence that gets broken by an amazingly loud explosion, which would probably give you the same reaction in theaters as to what you would have had like if you were physically there. To where although you see it and although you anticipate it and know it's coming, it still has this like shock value because it just out of nowhere just is quiet, silent, and just boom, really loud. It's just, there's so much attention to detail behind the movie that it just makes it such an incredible film. And I know it's going to be winning awards because you just have amazing actors from start to finish, and people have cameos that you would never expect, like Josh Peck from Drake
Josh
and Josh.
Peck was in it.
Yeah, Josh Peck is the one who pushes the button for the explosion or for like the Trinity test, and it's like, bro, what is Josh Peck doing in here? Like, it's just so incredible. I could talk
Put him
about
in
it
everything.
for way,
I don't care.
way forever. It's got fucking like, I didn't even register that it was whatever the fuck his name is. God damn it. I'm going to edit this out because this is embarrassing. Who plays Tony Stark? Fuck my life. God damn it.
Robert Downey Jr.
There we go.
I was going to say, let him cook.
Yeah. Robert Downey Jr. So, like, it didn't... When you see his character, which if you guys go see it, you'll understand this. But when you see his character, it doesn't really register until, like, into the movie. Like, oh, dude, that's Robert Downey Jr. Like, he just does such a good job between the visual effects of making himself look like an old man and then just changing the typical like Robert Downey Jr. character. It's just incredible. They did such an incredible job with the movie. I was so glad I got to see it last weekend. There's my like 20-minute tangent. Yeah. And for anybody listening, and for you guys too, I would recommend everybody should try to go see it in theaters if they can. This is a movie just kind of like Tenet was, where I think that to get the full experience behind the movie, I do think you need to go see it in theaters. I just don't think it's going to have the same impact whenever you're like at home, especially because as much as I fucking love Christopher Nolan, his movies are not dubbed for at-home television unless you have like a really expensive surround sound system. So that's why, like in Interstellar, for example, there's times where you have to like turn it up and turn it down because the dialogue is all blown out, or the whatever sounds that they're having are just like way louder than the rest of everything else. So, anyways, that's.
Did you see it in the 70? Did you see it in IMAX with the 70 millimeter
Yes.
IMAX?
Yes. Well, so it's an artificial one. So it's not like one of the legit, like real legit 70 millimeter ones. This one was an IMAX theater that was 70 mil, but it was one of their like digital ones.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah, I heard there was like a big controversy about that because there's only like 19 in the country
Yes.
that can actually show that. So
Can actually show the correct traditional 70 millimeter. Yeah.
yeah.
Which, God, somebody. Oh, Amazon.
More grooming products?
What'd you say?
More grooming products?
Yeah, maybe more ball trimmers. Yeah, it's. I mean, like not the science, but like the equipment required behind having that like full 70 millimeter film is pretty intense, and I guess to me it makes sense as somebody who really enjoys movies and understands like the intricacies of that. Like, it doesn't make economic sense from any movie theater standpoint to build one of those theaters unless it's a highly dense area where you know people are going to go watch it in that medium. Because think about all the movies that do come out in 70 millimeter IMAX and how many of them you and I would probably never go watch, which means you and I, as people who enjoy movies and people who enjoy that stuff, if we would not go watch it, then I'm assuming other people wouldn't as well. So it makes sense to me. Like, you wouldn't put an IMAX theater like that in the middle of fucking Montana, because like, who's gonna go watch a movie like that, right?
Yeah, we don't have one, so
Yeah, but like it would have been nice to see it in the traditional format, but it's also just insane. Like the spools that they had for creating, or not the spool creating, but the spools that they have to load into that 70 millimeter format was like the size of like those big industrial like cable like things. Like, it's just insane. Like,
They weigh
huge.
a ton, right? Like
Yeah.
even to ship this stuff, it's like crazy expensive because
Yeah.
of how much it weighs, because how many reels they need for
Exactly.
the movie, especially
They-
a 3-hour movie.
And this was actually the first movie, or this was the longest. I think this was the longest IMAX movie that they've had to date. And IMAX actually had to change their production processes just to be able to make this movie. And they had created new technology to create the continuous spool, to where it's a consistent, cohesive spool. It's really cool. It's really cool. I'm kind of excited for a lot of the behind the scenes, just, you know, like shit to come out after the movie comes out, like on digital mediums. Because it was the same thing with like Interstellar, where they did a very large dive into like how they created the movie, how they printed the movie, how did they do all that, you know, all that different stuff. So that'll be kind of cool. But yeah, Oppenheimer, 2 thumbs up from Dak. That's my rating system. It's just 2 thumbs up. My rating
we're
system
gonna
is
go
just
see the
5 dildos.
Ninja Turtles movie.
4 out of
at some
5
point.
dildos. What'd you say, Ninja Turtle?
Yeah, I think we're gonna go see the Ninja Turtles movie at some point. That's all.
Seamless transition.
It looks pretty good. Did you
That's like pretty-
did you watch the trailer for Creator?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Have you seen the trailer for that yet, Matt?
No.
So there's this new movie coming out called Creator, and it's kind of expanding upon the ethical and moral dilemmas of like AI technology in a sci-fi capacity. So it's gonna kind of got like elements of Terminator and
Ex Machina kind of stuff.
yeah, like it's got like, it kind of like combines all of those little categories of AI, you know, computer driven sci-fi.
Love it.
But it's supposed to be really, really good, and it looked really good. Visually looked really good. And then story-wise, it seemed pretty good too.
It's the same guy who did Rogue One, correct?
I believe so, yes.
I thought they put that in there.
Yes, I believe it's, if not the same director, then at least it's the same production company, same producers.
It looked really, really interesting. And that, that couldn't be, that's not too far off. It could happen.
Yeah. Matt, with the movie, like the trailer kind of goes into the dilemmas of like what happens whenever AI technology views humanity as a threat. They created this like AI super weapon, which we kind of saw with Warmind, which we'll talk about soon. But we had an AI technology that started to view humanity as the threat to humanity.
Right.
And so it launched a thermonuclear warhead or something like that against LA, and then created this whole war between AI and humans. But it's kind of got like a Dances with Wolves kind of story where one of the people is raised by AI, and then it comes out that they're like a human AI technology kind of conjoinedness. So then the movie, of course, is them trying to keep this kid alive as a means to perpetuate humanity. So it's supposed to be a really good movie, though. It looked really incredible. The trailer is just absolutely incredible, and it's got a really awesome cast of actors and actresses.
That's definitely right up my alley. I'll check it out.
Well, everything's technically up your alley because your alley is an open hallway of a butthole. So there's that.
I give that 0 dildos.
Yeah.
0 dildos.
0 out of 5 dildos. Matt, you recently watched Andor fucking finally after listening to me talk about it for the past year.
Well, I watched the second half. I rewatched the whole thing, but I caught the second half of it.
Finally. Yeah. So what are your thoughts? What did you think of Andor? What did you think of my favorite show of all time?
I mean, this is like the God of War comment that I made earlier.
Yeah.
So I watched up through the heist. So when they, spoiler alert, they steal everything and they're going off into space, and it was like beautiful scene. Like that felt like it could have ended there. Like that could have been enough, right? That would have been like a reasonable end to that show. They had planned this whole big thing, had this great like huge set piece finale, and then I don't know what happened. I like just forgot to go back and rewatch it, and then listen to the pod. I went back and like there's a whole the second half is like another whole season that dives deeper into these characters and the storyline, and it's like, I mean, I know I kind of like did a little, I was blowing up your, I was messaging you like crazy, like
I love it.
This is so good. I'm so glad you guys you guys were talking about it so much, and I went back and rewatched it and like diving into the characters, and it was this weird like Star Wars is just like a massive scale, right? And but sometimes it's just so highly focused on like the main characters, right? And like so you're tunnel visioned on it's Luke and Vader and all the other storylines that go along with it, but this was like a very localized impact of the Star Wars universe and like the Empire, and then there was all like the red tape with the ISB, which was like it was just like am I on Mira's side? Like she's the bad guy. But
yes.
Like,
no.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, but they did such a good job of like this isn't just a black and white. These are the bad guys. These are the good guys. There's like shades of gray everywhere.
Yeah.
And you kind of saw like that Ferrex, the little town like it's in the middle of nowhere, and like how that got impacted by this galactic war that's going on. That they're doing their little part to fight back, and how they kind of band together at the end. I mean, I don't know. I loved it. I thought it was so good. It was so good. It was like how I envisioned like going back to Nolan, but like The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
When I came out of that, I was like, this isn't just a good comic book movie. This is just an incredible like movie. Period.
Just a good movie in general. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Watching Andor, I was like, this isn't a good Star Wars show. This is such a great show. Like it was so good.
Mm-hmm.
And it went through so many different iterations because you had the heist, and then you had the prison, and then you had Ferrex, and it was like and then you had the ISB. So there was like all these different storylines, kind of similar to like Game of Thrones almost, where these like concurrent things and how it all like came to I don't know whatever.
Converges
I'm
together.
gushing on it, but I'm 100% on board with everything you guys are saying about how good it was.
Well, it's interesting to me because I mean, obviously you guys have known that I'm like a huge Star Wars nerd for years now, but like I feel like out of everybody in our friend group, like obviously I'm the one that's the most intense into Star Wars, But like even people who don't really enjoy it at all, like even Jericho said that he's just really enjoyed the show. Like it's cool to see people. I think that they did a really good job of creating a very approachable Star Wars creation to where anybody who has never watched a Star Wars creation in their lives could pick up the remote and watch the show and still feel very into the universe, like enveloped by the universe. So it's just such an incredible show. God.
No, that's a good point too. Like that's something that can stand on its own. That like it builds off all the other aspects, and kind of what that leads to with the movie and all that. But you don't need the movie to make it great. It just enhances it if you do have that background. But that's how good it was. It could stand on its own as its own story if it needed to. But it gets even better when you throw in out all the other side aspects that and the other offshoots that it plays into.
And that's really, really hard to do from a writing standpoint, to create a universe where both people who have never enjoyed it before can enjoy it, and people who deeply enjoy it don't necessarily feel like alienated. Don't feel alienated themselves, which is just incredible. I think what it also does so amazingly is that it does fit all of these like tiny Easter eggs into the show in such a large scale that like you wouldn't normally pick out until you go back and rewatch some of the other content. One of the things that I'm talking about is, have you ever noticed the parallels in the scene that Matt was just talking about where they're escaping Aldhani, trying to get above the eye? And then of course, also the parallels with the scene of the heist that they did on Scarif. I didn't notice this until I rewatched Rogue One the other night, but one of the things that what is his name? No, the manifesto, is it Nem? Is that right?
I can't remember. I know it's the young guy. I just can't remember his name.
We always forget his name every single time we talk about him. We always forget his name. I'll put the name in there. Anyways, that character. So when they're trying to escape Aldhani, one of the things that he yells repeatedly is "Rise," and it is the exact same thing that K2SO says when they are out when he is, shooting all of the sand troopers that come in. And when they're trying to climb to get to the top, to get to that data disk, the thing that he says to Andor and Jen is "climb," and like yells it at them at the same way when he's dying, just like we saw with Nem, if that's his name. But there's just all these like tiny little bit tidbits, like tiny tidbits that Tony Gilroy sneaks in there, which just makes it so much more incredible. Like kind of like Mandalorian season 3, I feel like, or season 2, sorry. I feel like they did such a good job of making people who have been dedicated to Star Wars to enjoy the material, even if it's something that's not like normal, by putting those little Easter eggs in there, like they did with the Rebels characters, giving us a preview for what we're going to get with Ahsoka, like they did with like the Cantina scene, just like bringing like different elements all around from Star Wars into it. This is the aspect of Disney that I actually enjoy when it comes to Star Wars, that we're getting a much more nuanced and thoughtful approach to doing a Marvel-esque style universe, but Star Wars, to where it's not as like drinking from a fucking fire hose like what it is with trying to watch Marvel content now. Where if you missed one show, then you can't watch like the movie that comes out, right? The fact that they've kind of like figured out that they can't really do an expanded universe like that in that same capacity, I think is what's giving us a little bit more like streamlined Star Wars content. And like Matt said, it's also nice that they've stepped away from like the grandiose that we used to get out of the movies.
Right. I'm kind of excited for them with.
They still have it, but it's not. Yeah, it's not like it's not the only thing going on, right? But sorry, I didn't mean.
No, totally.
No, you're good. I was just saying, I'm excited for them to like finally get out of, the Luke and Vader, Skywalker saga, and like branch out, because like it seems like almost everything is kind of put into episodes 1 through 6 for the most part, and we
Yeah.
don't have really a whole lot after that at this point.
Yeah.
So, with Mando and Ahsoka and all that, and then the High Republic shows that are going to come out like hundreds of years before
Yeah.
the main saga, like them getting into that is just super exciting because we don't really know a whole lot that has happened in that time period.
Minus like us Star Wars nerds, you know what I mean? Like those of us who are like deep into it and read the books,
Right.
dive
And
into
obviously
like Legends
there's
content.
legend stuff and the whole but how much of Legends are they going to bring into the Disney canon? We don't know.
Slowly trickling it in, slowly, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just, we don't, obviously we've talked about Andor like almost every single episode because it's my favorite show.
For good reason.
Yes.
But it is a
great
good.
show.
Like, you're right. After watching it, I want to rewatch it, but like next, like with you, and you could be like, oh, that's the thing, and like point out all the little tidbits that I don't know because I'm not as plugged into the universe.
Oh,
but I love that stuff. I love it. That's why, like, I don't know.
That's why you love Destiny so much. I mean, that's
exactly.
Yeah. I will say, whoever is unlucky enough to become my partner in life is in for a rude awakening with watching any Star Wars content with me, because I'm gonna like pause it every 3 seconds and be like, actually, hold on.
Did you know at this point in the thing, like 3 seconds in, listen to the song here, and then we'll go.
Actually,
this.
Hold on. Let me go grab a book
same
really
song
quick.
There.
Yeah, like the same song. Let me go grab my book really quick. Here, it's like in chapter 8 or something. Yeah. But yeah. So
why is this important? Because it is.
Just, you don't get it? Okay, hold on. Let me get out my diagram. Like pull out, like like a.
That's.
But yeah, honestly, it's just it's cool. It's cool. I'm fucking excited for season 2. I'm excited for all the shit that we're gonna get into with all the other shows. But you know what? We're not here to talk about Star Wars again for like the 9th episode in a row. I know. You know what we're here for? We're here to talk about Destiny. Yeah. You can see his maniacal little lore hands, his tiny little lore paws getting all warmed up. So the biggest reason why Matt is our guest this week is because, as described beforehand, Matt and I met through Destiny. I started playing the video game. I played it like once it came out, just because I was hot off the trails of the Halo hype that existed back in 2013. But I think I played. So like Destiny's launch was not great. Bungie had been developing the game for about. Do you remember how much it was? I think it was like 5 or 6 years before the game came out. It was a project that they were.
It's long term usually, the production cycle, but I feel like it was like not. It was like 1.5 times. So if it was just 3 years or 4 years, they were doing like 6 or 6.5 or 7 years.
Because I think they started development right around the time that Halo 2 came out. Because the game engine that they use for Destiny is the exact same game engine as Halo 2.
Right. They threw all those little nods in there, right? There was that. There's like a poster in Halo
with like the Traveler.
That had like the Traveler on it. Yeah.
So I mean, the game was in development for a pretty long time before it came out. But when it did come out, it was not a great release. Had a lot of glitches, and it felt like a lot of empty promises. And I think that Bungie was probably struggling to separate their identity from Halo. So right around the time of the release, they did get rid of some key players at Bungie who had been there for a while. And subsequently, it seemed like the game kind of hurt. So I would say probably, would you agree, Matt, that probably the first year of release was pretty rough for the game? Because it wouldn't have been until probably like whatever Wolves expansion.
Yeah, House of Wolves. If you want to lump like Proto's End in there, which is the first like expansion that nowadays would be like laughed at if they tried to put that out as an expansion like that. So that was when it really just tanked. It was bad. It was a bad time.
So I think for myself, I'm trying to think. So I think then for myself, I didn't play any of the Crota material, the Dark Below. So I think I only played the vanilla game and then just stopped and just like went and played other shit.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then I think I came back with you guys for Forsaken. I think think Forsaken was whenever I got back into it. But yeah, so we would probably have to split this up into like 8 different episodes if we talk about like the story of Destiny. But why don't you give us like the tidbits? Give us, for somebody like Kyle who's never played the game before, who I'm trying to get to play the game.
I don't know anything.
Yeah, why don't you give like the tidbits of like the story of Destiny and kind of like what it is?
Gonna crack a new one here if we're gonna dive into the meat of the episode.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm a dad. I don't get a drink in the afternoon. I'm just gonna take advantage of all the
I'm
opportunity I got.
100% with you on that one.
Yeah. All right. So so Destiny, when first Destiny 1, its idea is a classic good versus evil story, right? There's this thing that kind of looks like a moon. It's a sphere that's it just shows up in our universe, in our solar system, I should say, and it provides all these benefits. It's a terraforming entity, so it creates worlds. So like Mars and Venus become livable planets, so they're not toxic to humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the setting is our solar system then?
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
100%
it's
inside
human.
of Sol.
It's correct. It's
Okay.
it starts off as a human race, and then you can play as other characters, which I'll get into. But basically this thing, they call it the Traveler because it traveled here from other universes, and it expands like human productivity and life. Like the average age goes up to like 300 years, and there's all this prosperity. So we're expanding and starting to branch out and take over the solar system and going further out. But there's this dark entity called the Darkness that follows the Traveler, and then there's this nebulous event called the Collapse, where the Traveler fights back the Darkness, but it damages itself in the process, and so it's kind of dormant. And when it goes dormant, it creates these things called a ghost, which is this little cube that floats around, and it funnels the light from the Traveler. So what the ghost does is it goes around, it finds someone who's died, and resurrects them
if they're worthy.
If they're worth, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe. Well, it finds.
That's what we thought.
Yeah. It finds a former, a person or whatever entity, and resurrects them as a completely new person. They don't have any memories of their former selves, and they have like the abilities that are given to them by the Traveler. So that's what in the game it's called the Light. And as we it's actually a really clever way to introduce like resurrecting in a game, because it's always like, oh, I died, I'm just gonna hit reset, but there is like a legitimate, your ghost revives you, so you can go try that level again or try that boss battle again. So it's kind of a unique and interesting way to like get circumvent real world, and it's not just because video games. But anyway, so all these alien races come to our solar system, and they're basically trying to either kill us or take back the Traveler or whatever, right? There's 4 main enemy races, and it's the game was basically just us, pushing back the enemies of the Traveler is basically what the idea was.
Which the interesting aspect to, not to cut you off there, but the interesting aspect about the enemies too, Kyle, is they're based entirely off of D&D characters and D&D beings that already exist. Yeah, so like the main groups that we have are the Hive, which obviously are a hive mind related, creature.
So like a mind flayer sort of thing? Or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Even like their lowest tier of like enemy is called Thrall. So like they have like very deeply ingrained within the game is D&D culture, which leads it, in my opinion, to create such a better expandable universe when it comes to the game. So you have the Hive, you have Vex, you have the Cabal, and then you have the Fallen. So the Hive obviously are a hive mind created, or they're a hive mind creature. Singular focus, they all kind of just serve. I mean, realistically, who's in charge of the Hive then at this point? Zivu or Wrath, technically?
Yeah.
So it used to be like the big
baddie. Get into
baddie.
their whole.
Yeah.
They have an incredible backstory. They're like our true, like polar opposites.
Yeah.
Like if we're the light wielders, they're the true like darkness wielders. So they're like the most, antagonist type
Yes.
race that we fight.
The Vex are all mechanical creatures. They're mechanical creatures with a kind of like synthetic organism or like an organic liquid that's called radiolaria. And that's kind of like their collective consciousness in a sense. So you have the Vex, then you also have the Fallen. The Fallen are creatures that were blessed by the light, that the Traveler had gone to their solar system, blessed them with the abilities of light, all of that jazz. And then during their version of the calamity or the darkness came and, attacked their solar system. And the Traveler was like, dipping out, don't want to be a part of this, see y'all. And then, of course, the darkness happened, which killed countless numbers of their people. So then their new goal in life was to follow around the Traveler, hoping to win back the Traveler's grace and be blessed with the powers of the Traveler again. And then lastly, you had the Cabal, which the Cabal are, the best way to describe them is akin to the Roman Empire. I mean, a lot of their aesthetic is based around like Roman aesthetics, even all the way up and down between like what they name their bosses, between what they name, their Joe Schmoes. Like it's very heavily Roman influenced, where conquering all the other peoples and being in true power is like their ultimate goal. Which, combined with all the different enemies types and all the different groups, you have warring factions where some of them attack others, and then later on in this story they become our friends. Like it's very cool how they create even subgroups who have internal strifes, where a specific class within the Cabal tried doing a coup and throwing over the leader. Like it's just the world development and the intense effort that they put, I would say, behind the lore is what makes, even if the game itself has bad content, it makes the game incredible, and people will just dive into the content, like me, who will hate it but still be like, this is amazing because of all the lore we're getting. Especially with like little lore whores like what we got right over there, who goes very deep into the lore. Yes.
Yeah.
But so we get pretty much, you get resurrected, you're resurrected, you get abilities, and then the game from there is pretty much just you learning the abilities and then doing various tasks that humanity's survivors, who also have abilities, kind of lead out. So that's where you get into the Vanguard and what the Vanguard are. Matt, I'll let you take back over.
Yeah, the Vanguard are basically, so when you start up and you create a new character, you can choose between one of three factions that you can play as. You can play as a Titan, a Hunter, or a Warlock.
So like a
the
tank,
Titans are,
a mage,
yeah,
or like what would that be? What would be the Hunter's
a Hunter's
version?
a Hunter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a Hunter.
yeah.
Hunter.
Ranger.
Yeah, Ranger.
Ranger
yeah,
is
yeah.
what it is. Yeah.
So, the Titans are like stoic and, last line of defense. And then the Warlocks are all just off like, ooh, we're going to dive into all this arcana. And then the Hunters are like, lone wolves, and they go out and, explore the universe and kind of, front lines, hide, very clandestine, that kind of thing. So you can choose between one of those three. And the Vanguard is a collection of the leaders of each one of those groups. So, if you know Lance Reddick, who was the guy from John Wick, who was the concierge at the hotel, and he's done a bunch. He was in The Wire. He was Lieutenant Daniels, but he voices the Titan Vanguard.
Voiced.
Yeah, voiced. I know. Yeah. So it's weird because he passed away a couple months ago, but he had already pre-recorded voice lines. So we actually got like a couple months after he had passed, we still were getting like new voice lines from him, which is very eerie. And so, yeah, anyway, then Nathan Fillion had voiced the Hunter Vanguard. In game, his character has died. So, but looks like he's coming back.
Spoiler alert! Oh,
yeah, I know. Well, whatever. I mean,
came out 5 years ago.
and then there's the Warlock. Who does her voice now? Ikora.
I don't know who does her voice anymore. I know it was Gina Torres.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is weird. So I've been watching Suits recently. Really weird watching her in Suits. Because I'm like, this is not Ikora. This is blowing my brains.
Yeah. But so the three of them kind of lead. There's no like singular ruler of humanity anymore, but they're sort of or I'd say the leaders of the Guardians, and the Guardians kind of run the show now because they, in theory, live forever because they can constantly be healed and revived by their ghost. The only way you can't be revived is if your ghost is destroyed.
Or if you're in like a darkness zone.
Yeah. So there's certain areas when you're like, the video game circumvention of that is that when you go fight like a big boss or something, that their darkness power is so overwhelming and you're kind of in their turf that they're able to suppress the reviving capabilities of your ghost, and so that's how they kind of get around that against like the big baddies. But
which again is such a cool like nuanced approach to like non-revive zones, which is just they even have like a lore implication behind it and just say the darkness is so overwhelming that the light doesn't have enough power to like even resurrect you, which is just cool.
They're very, you mentioned it earlier, like being very thoughtful about how they're approaching all these like little pieces, and it's, you don't feel like you're constantly suspending disbelief. Besides the fact you're summoning space magic, it's like it makes sense, but it makes sense in the like it's built on something that feels like it could be real, right? Like if you can just say that yes, this celestial being imbued us with these powers, that it just I guess that makes sense. If you can believe that, then. And the world all flows properly, like it doesn't.
Even like down to the nuance of, like, you have people who are imbued with those powers who used it for the absolute wrong reasons, even being resurrected and even being brought up in the light in a good capacity. How that power can go to their head and then turn pretty much to the darkness. It's just, I think that singularly is what got me into Destiny, was just the lore and the development of the world, to where, like you just said, even though it was sci-fi, it seemed somewhat grounded within the realm of possibility, which I think a lot of games and movies, Star Wars included, doesn't necessarily do a good job of, where the heroes are the heroes are the heroes. And kind of like what we saw in Andor was, the bad guys aren't always the bad guys. The heroes aren't always the heroes. That's what we're getting, especially lately, out of the I almost said Destiny universe. That all of these things that we thought are not at all necessarily the case any longer. Which I think part of it's the ever-evolving story, which keeps people engaged. But also it's really cool to see the crescendo of the story arc that we've been playing now for the past for you like 7 years, for me 5 years. But
the crazy thing is that the entirety of Destiny 1, so we're obviously on Destiny 2 now, but the entirety of Destiny 1 was very clear: light good, darkness bad. And there was this there were opposed forces, and we were beings of the light, and then they were fighting all the bad guys who were all beings of the darkness. And even that's to start like D2. But an interesting little, like, this is like a total nuancy thing that they did, is that when you died in D1, it said the darkness consumes you, and in D2, and now it says your light fades. So they got rid of that, and the reason is that now, as we've progressed through the story, we actually are able to wield the darkness now. So we're able to take those powers on, and I think you guys were talking. I'm sorry, I don't know Star Wars that well, but was it Outlaws or something? There was a Star Wars game where you're kind of like the dark side of the Force could be used for good, kind of thing.
Survivor.
The game
Yeah.
So like that's very much in line with what's going on in Destiny now, and and you're seeing where like it's not as cut and dry. And to Dak's point, they didn't really lean into this in D1, but in D2 they definitely did, where like the initial group of people who were resurrected by ghosts were terrible people. They were people.
Warlords is what they were.
They were literally called warlords. They would just basically have a region that they would just own, and everyone was subservient to them. And then eventually it got to the point where there was a group of warlords who turned to the good, and they said, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to protect people. And, they kind of ended up overthrowing the warlords. But, and even still to this day, there's still like people who use they're guardian. They're called guardians when you're resurrected. There's guardians who use the light or the darkness for self gain and to harm others. So, we were always like put on this pedestal of like we're like the defenders of the universe, and it's like, well, not really. It's not how it works. And on the other side of the coin, that as we're 7 years into this saga, is former enemies are now allies, and it's not just like enemy of my enemy stuff. There are true. So there's members of that fallen race who originally had the powers of the Traveler. They didn't have ghosts back then, but they were still like given all like the expanded life and new technology and all that. And when the Traveler left, they devolved. Their all society just completely devolved. They turned into raiding pirates and very barbaric, and there's a faction of them, a subgroup of them, who are like trying to break out of that and trying to be more civilized. And so they've actually joined with humanity to fight back, forces of evil. And there's some of the Cabal, which is that warring faction, and they've sort of drawn a line in the sand. There's like the ones who like stick with ways of old, who realize that actually it makes sense to align with the fighters of the Guardians. And then there's another aspect that's gone so far in the other direction, all darkness, take over the universe kind of thing. So it's like it's muddied the waters significantly in terms of it's not just this clear cut of like, here's the good guys, here's the bad guys.
Yeah. What would you, obviously, so like we got to see previews of that during the Forsaken launch. Obviously, once we got to like Season of the Drifter, once we started to find out a little bit more about who he was, we started to realize that maybe somebody who maybe even has like a bad origin story doesn't necessarily lead to like a bad person. But I would say, and I'm sure you would agree with this, probably where we got the most of it was probably Season of the Arrivals, I think. Is that whenever they really started pushing that narrative that like there's more at play here than just light good, dark bad.
Definitely, yeah. Because there was actually because that's when Savathun was sort of at odds with the darkness. Savathun was one of the that raised the Hive, right? She was the queen of the Hive at the time.
And for the longest time, we thought it was just she's bad, she's bad, she's bad.
Yeah. But she was actually at odds. She was trying to get to us, and the overarching entity of the darkness was trying to come to us and say, no, join like my side. Mm-hmm. And the darkness saying, we're your salvation, and she's saying, don't listen to him, it's all lies. But she's also been trying to kill us for eons. It's like it's this weird, and again, it goes to like what we were talking about earlier with the ISB and Mira. Like I don't know, I'm kind of on her side, but she's also trying to kill me. Like I don't know. Like and then it just did like such a good job with like slow rolling her introduction and like building up this huge character. And then they launched an entire expansion surrounding just her. Yeah. And the big thing with that was, again, kind of blurring the lines, is that she's found out a way to make ghosts resurrect her dead Hive. So these are beings of the darkness who have died, and now ghosts are starting to resurrect them, and they're getting the powers of the light. So that is really just thrown, that was right after Season of Arrivals. Yeah. Is we got Season of the, what was it called with Mara? I can't remember there was one more season, and then the big Hive expansion when they started getting the light. And so it's really just, it's sort of a free-for-all right now, and nobody knows which way is up.
Which even like the Witch Queen expansion too, the whole time that we were playing the Witch Queen, we all thought, okay, we're just trying to find out how she got the light. Savathun is who we're talking about. We were trying to figure out how she got the light, how the Guardians, or how their Hive Guardians were able to get the light, and how they stole it. That's what it was framed as for us, is how did you steal the light? How did you take these powers? And then once we get to the end of that campaign, we find out that she didn't take them. She didn't steal it. She was blessed with light, which that's where it opened up the whole mentality of what makes good, what makes evil. Like what makes the light inherently good, what makes the darkness inherently evil. And they started to shape the idea that it's not the powers themselves, it's not light or dark, it's the people that wield them. Just no different than we see people, like he mentioned, the warlords of old, where you kind of have to understand that, like, this calamity event, the darkness attacking humanity, was like an apocalyptic event. So out of any apocalypse, you've seen this in war-torn countries. You see this specifically in the remnants of post-colonial Africa, where when you have this massive power vacuum and when you have this massive amount of people who have died from horrible reasons, out of that usually seems to rise people who are self-interested, people who are all about self-preservation, and then who take that to the extreme. And so it was a very similar thing with the warlords, which they went into it much more deeply in the Iron Banner, not Iron. Rise of Iron. There we go. The Rise of Iron campaign. That although these entities may have started off as great people, they turned to really horrible people. And I think that when it was kind of coming out later, some of the inspiration that they used as part of like how they created these characters of the warlords is very similar to what we saw occur in Africa post-colonialism, where these are people who started off as liberators, people who, you know, were able to collect the colonialist or kick the colonialist out in the name of the people, who they themselves in turn started killing their own people once they obtained that power. So it's really interesting just seeing the intersectionality that occurs between real life things that occur versus what we're getting in game in like a much more different and nuanced approach. It's just incredible. Well, we could probably sit here and talk for hours about it, but you know, we'll move it along a little bit. So once we got the Witch Queen expansion, then we started to find out about who was in control of the darkness or the bad side of the darkness powers. And it's all this one entity called the Witness, which is like a paracausal entity is the best way to describe it, who has such control and such powers that they're able to like bend both the fabric of time and even at like a atomic level able to control matter and separate matter, create new things out of existing matter. Like it's just, if you want to talk about like the worst possible entity that it could exist and like the worst possible enemy, that's what we're getting out of like the Witness. Somebody who is so singularly focused on their own path that it's almost, at this point in the game, it's almost like a unforeseeable outcome that we have on how in the hell we're going to be able to combat against like the ultimate sense of evil. Like there's a scene is it the very last scene that we got from Lightfall, or I guess it's the very first scene. So the Witness, so part of the story that we've gotten is that the Witness, the darkness, was slowly coming towards our solar system little bit by little bit to create a second calamity. And so especially in some of the previous seasons, we actually physically see those entities getting closer and closer and closer to us until the Traveler is pretty much in our back door. So where we get with the most recent expansion, Lightfall, is that the Traveler has arrived and we need to do whatever we can do to stop, or not the Traveler, the Witness in the darkness. Yeah. Doing whatever we can do to stop them from either killing the Traveler or taking the Traveler. And so it's just, I think the scene that they even open up with is the Traveler is able to control, like I said, like the metaphysical connections to where with a wave of his finger, like the Guardians that were coming towards his ship and started attacking had like, not really like sliced up, but like like the matter within their own bodies like completely started to like separate, which is just like crazy. I think the specific scene that I'm talking about, like you see the Titan Guardian, and then the next scene is like the Guardian looks like it's been sliced up like in all these like tiny little bits, and then it just kind of like expands out. Like it's crazy. And that was all just from like the wag of a finger. It's just the entity that we're going against is so incredibly overpowered. It's just, it's cool. It's cool to figure out, like, where do we go from here? Like, what do we do now? And specifically, like, at the end of the Witch Queen, I would say a lot of the questions that we had is, what the fuck? What does this mean? What just happened? Is she lying to us? Compared to the end of Lightfall, I feel like we got to the end and we're like, holy shit, we didn't win. What's going to happen next? What's going on? How are we going to survive this? Like, they've done a very good job of shifting the narrative, like what we're seeing with Star Wars, where we're not getting the typical tropes of, we're the heroes, so we're going to go in there and we're going to conquer and we're going to be winning and we're going to be great and it's going to be amazing, to then shifting the narrative to creating characters who don't always win, even with the powers that they have, and creating circumstances like what we saw out of Greek tragedies, where we get to the end and we're like, well, this didn't end on a good note, but I want more. Like, it's very, very cool. I would say, go ahead, Matt.
I just, the other thing I was thinking about too is, I mean, obviously I've kind of repeated this theme about this like blurring of lines, but you know, the Witness is a little bit of a, it's not quite like a Thanos character, because like Thanos, you know, he was a brutal tyrant, but like when you think about what his goal was, it's like make the hard decision to save half of the universe instead of letting the entire universe burn down, right?
Yeah.
That's, you know, I'm distilling it down to like its simplest version. And that's kind of what the Witness wants to do. It wants ultimate control over everything. And that's to reduce suffering. And that's why it always says, we're your salvation. It refers to itself in the plural. Like, we're your salvation, because it's like, we're going to save everyone from themselves. So you're going to, all the suffering's going to go away. And that's, and it imbued the hive with the darkness. And the darkness's entire, like, structure is something called the sword logic, which is basically that if whatever's the most powerful thing in the universe should be the only thing that's allowed to live. And if you're weak, then killing you is a like a form of love, that I love you, so I'm going to end your suffering by killing you, and then I'm going to get stronger by doing that, and then I'll be able to take out, and then so it's just this whittling away of, you know, all this dead leaves and things is kind of what their whole thought process is.
Which even then is something that was created out of a lie by the Witness himself. So like, even this, like, what is the overarching bad entity or the bad action against us was all created out of a simplistic lie as well. Like, it wasn't even like the sword logic. What they're kind of getting at is that the sword's logic doesn't even have any ground in reality, because it was 100% a fabricated lie that the Witness sold to to the Hive, which at the time were not called the Hive. What were they called, Matt? I forget what their names.
Krill.
The Krill. That's right. So it was something that he sold to the Krill as a means to help perpetuate his plan. Which, you know, I think that there's a lot of, for those of us who are Star Wars fans, there's a lot of a similarity between the long-term plans of Palpatine and the long-term plans that we see out of the Witness. How all of these tiny little entities that we're attacking here and there are not actually randomized singular events like we thought beforehand, but they actually are all connected into this one big web that exists as part of the story. And it's just incredible. I mean, it's hard to write that way. It's why Star Wars struggles to do that, because it is hard to create these tiny little bit of events that all conglomerate into one big story.
I mean, it's literally the problem with game dev, right? Like, this is a live service game that has to have action every single week for 7 years. It's like, how do you have 7 years of weekly content that everything feeds into the exact same story, but doesn't just give it all away automatically? And I think we've gotten spoiled because of how good the storytelling has been and how much better it's gotten. And at its core, Bungie just makes incredible shooters. Like the gunplay is unbelievable. It's the best feeling FPS I've ever played. And
which let's go ahead and leave this story. Let's talk about the game itself a little bit more. Yeah. So go into that a little bit more. So like the gunplay, you know, it's hard to describe that auditorily, of course. which maybe after this, if you've got some like clips or something you can send me. I haven't played recently enough, but if you've got some clips you can send, we can spatter some clips throughout here. But yeah, so you get the incredibleness of all of the gunplay. We'll call it technology because ultimately it is technology at the end of it. But we got all the building upon of the incredible gunplay that we got out of Halo, which then led us to get this game, which, you know, Matt, I was thinking about this the other day when I was trying to think about like Destiny, because like the big things I wanted to hit on was like the story, the game itself, like the cool things that the game does that other games don't do. And then of course we'll talk about the score in a little bit. But the gunplay, it was really hard, and it remains to be hard for me to think of anything to describe to people that is similar. And I've played a lot of games, right? I'm not a big shooter game person myself, but I played a lot of shooters, and I just can't I don't know how to describe it. The gunplay feels so fluid and feels so natural, where with other games, maybe the gunplay feels clunky, or it feels like what you're doing doesn't lead to what the end result should be. Like it's hard to describe it.
No, that's 100% it. It's snappy in the right way. It doesn't feel like overly rushed. You know, when it's not this like, I mean, COD's kind of pushed that way, right? Where it's like, do everything as fast as you can.
Yep.
And
push.
It's not what it's like. Yeah. It rewards, accuracy, but it's also forgiving in certain respects. There's aim assist is generally pretty good. So that gives you that very, like where your bullets go is, let's set aside PvP because it's a whole that's a whole other thing. But especially in PvP, so when you're fighting, the AI, you feel like whatever inputs you have on the controller come to fruition on the screen in front of you.
Yeah.
So it's very clean in that
and
sense. And there's
not in like a handout way either. Like it's not like the game is punishing. If you miss, it's punishing. A good example would be probably like sleeper stimulant, like where when you hit it and you hit that crit shot and you do hit the target correctly, amazing damage. But you hit a body shot, not worth it. So it does it in a way that is forgiving, but also still makes you want to make sure that you're hitting your shots and you're doing it correctly. What are some of the other things about the gameplay? I mean, clambering. I know that sounds like such a weird mechanic to be like, this game does it really well. But especially playing a lot of playing like Fallen Order and then playing Survivor recently, it's just weird. It's weird how other games do like something as simplistic as clambering, which is not something we had in D1, which is strange that the mechanic is so polished for something so simplistic. What are some other things about Destiny 2, you think, gameplay wise, or like mechanics or something like that?
I mean, the interaction. So obviously you're able to conjure space magic. So again, this is another way that like, you don't like pick up grenades on the ground like you did in Halo, but you actually like create them with the light.
Yeah.
So you throw a grenade and then you have to wait for it to like your light to replenish, sort of thing. And then there's like a melee attack. And then each of the three classes has like a special ability, and then you have like a super, which is like your ultimate, or whatever you want to call it. So there's those four kind of abilities that you have, and you can seamlessly flip back and forth between the gunplay and then the space magic, and so and it interacts with one another a lot. So like there's certain perks on weapons where if you get, so like arc is an ability. If you get an arc kill, you get something called jolt on your gun, and then that gun then also electrifies everything else around it when you shoot something.
Creates
so
like change damage and everything. Yeah,
exactly. So it's the game interacts with itself very, very well.
Yeah,
and you can support others too, right? So like sometimes there's a warlock ability called the Well of Radiance, which is like the ultimate, and you throw the sword on the ground and you create this well, or like area where you're super highly protected and your damage is boosted, and it affects your entire team.
Yeah.
So like that's how you play support, but you still get to be involved. You're not just holding a shield while everyone behind you shoots through it. You're actually getting involved too. So you're
not anymore since that one was so severely nerfed.
But
which, that right there, that's another thing that I think, as much as people want to complain about it, because so the Destiny community, there are a few communities out there that are so intense about the game, such as the Destiny community. Like it's bad enough where like dead ass, I just don't get on Twitter anymore because my Twitter for the most part for years now has been Destiny content. And God, people just are very zealous about this game. But I will say that I think that is a difference that they do with this game, even with other larger, bigger brands like Call of Duty, for example. I mean, shit, Matt, when a while ago now, this would have been COVID, but do you remember that like season where that it was like that semi-automatic like marksman rifle. I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was like king in Call of Duty.
It was like it was DMR. I forget what it was.
The DMR.
But,
no,
right?
Yeah. So you could like get sniped across the map by this gun. That gun was out for like several weeks before they nerfed it. And it was very overpowered. The difference is that Destiny usually doesn't even let something that's overpowered last for like even a fucking day for us to enjoy before they come in and either just disable it in the game until they can fix it or until they go through and do a hot patch. Like, as much as people complain about Bungie, there are very few games that get that kind of constant attention from the dev team to where within even the same day of content being released, they'll release a hot patch to fix something that they messed up as far as the other stuff goes. It's just incredible. The score, kind of like what we talked about with Christopher Nolan movies, the score, in my opinion, is what also elevates this game so much higher above other games. So still leading the music team there at Bungie is Michael Salvatore, who was the original composer for all of the Halo series. And so, of course, as you know, Kyle, Halo has incredible scores. So we got that same team that then led into Destiny 2, but elevated it. So all of the music with Destiny is all live recorded. They don't do anything synthetic, minus, of course, synthetic sounds. But like all of the orchestra, all of that type of stuff is all live. Which what they said from the very beginning, kind of like what we got with Lucasfilm, is they wanted to make sure that the game's score was elevated to give it this sense of being much bigger than what we have. Their use of like synthetics or their use of orchestra, all of it just creates this much better and much more emotional surrounding versus behind what you're doing. Some of the most incredible soundtrack songs that I can think of have come from like the Destiny universe. There's some songs, specifically, I think the peak, which Matt may disagree with me on this one, but I think the peak for Destiny score was probably Forsaken's soundtrack.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then what would you put up there as like second place?
The Taken King expansion was incredible.
Was
the Taken
good.
King expansion was. Those are generally like 1A, 1B for the expansions in general, but also like the score is a huge part of that. Especially since like the key song from each season ends up being the like loading screen. So every time you boot the game up, you hear it, and those both had incredible starting music. So it's just like one of those things that gets ingrained in your head every time you boot the game up.
Do you remember Forsaken, where it would open up on that white screen and like the very, very loud horns?
Yep. Bungie loves their French horns. They're so good.
So what was really funny about that specific season, I think it was before it used to be where if you were kicked out to orbit for a period of time, it would kick you back to the loading screen. The number of times that I would like maybe just fall asleep with the game open and then just wake up to the bum, 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 bum. But yeah, so the score was incredible. The cool thing actually, going back to the Taken King, because it kind of blended in to Forsaken, one of the other enemies styles that we actually got to introduce to late in Destiny 1 was an enemy called the Taken. And so the Taken are kind of like ghosts in a sense. They're like kind of like ghost creatures, but they're resurrected enemies that have been resurrected with powers of darkness. So physically looking at the characters themselves, It's almost like a void of light is kind of like what it is. So like if Matt was taken, it wouldn't just be like Matt there. It would be like a dark, shrouded entity version of Matt, which at the time, maybe if we would have had a little bit better technology, they probably could have done a really cool opening bit for the enemy that we get to see. But one of the things they did music wise to perpetuate the idea that this is distorted reality or dark reality was they would then turn whatever song may occur or whatever sound may occur as strings, then distort it to where it's like a deep distorted synth. And so specifically, which I'll insert here to play for our listeners. But there's one song called Keep of Voices. And this Keep of Voices is a song that plays in the Dreaming City. The Dreaming City, which we didn't even get into that. The Dreaming City is probably like, in my opinion, the most gorgeous creation out of any video game that exists on the planet. And the way to describe the aesthetic is think of like the elven city inside of Lord of the Rings. So very beautiful green, verdant. It's got like, autumn colors. And then of course it has that very heavy influence of elven style of like architecture. But one of the songs that's inside of that is called Keep of Voices. Very beautiful string song, has great bellows, kind of has this like mentality of like, we have an unforeseeable future, but we know that we're going to persevere. But what would happen is that once the Taken were involved, like once you got to the point of the raid where this song came out, where you started attacking Taken enemies, it distorts all of the strings and turns it from like strings, which is beautiful, to like this distorted synth as like a means to perpetuate the idea that this is like not normal and that reality itself has been distorted via the Taken. So again, it's just like we've said over and over and over again, the word nuance is like, it's just something that Bungie does great, which makes me so fucking excited for Marathon, knowing that we're kind of starting to close the chapter of Destiny out. But yeah, as far as favorite characters go, what would you say your favorite? We'll limit it to one character. What do you think your favorite character is out of Destiny?
Oryx.
Oryx?
Hands down. Oryx, yeah.
Okay. The big baddie, the original big baddie.
The original big baddie. He got that whole, I mean, part of it is that we got so much of his backstory.
Yeah.
And his backstory is so heavily tied to the whole backstory of the Hive. And now that that's like expanded out further with all the new, Vow of the Disciple coming out and all the information that's come out with the Witness and all that. But the Books of Sorrow, which is like a 50 entry book that talks about the background of the Hive. I mean, that could be like a show or something in and of itself, a series, something like it's that good.
Yeah.
Like Bungie's story writing and world building, and it's incredible. That literally could just be on its own show.
Which I even think, so part of the acquisition that we saw occur, one of the things that they mentioned was that they wanted to do other media when it comes to like the Destiny universe. So there's a lot of rumors. We don't really know anything about it because there's nothing coming out about it, but we think we're going to be getting some sort of like short show series or a movie or something in that capacity. Especially if anybody has gone to the movies recently, once every quarter, it seems like PlayStation Entertainment is releasing a movie or a show in some capacity. So I would venture to say that that's going to happen with like Destiny as well.
What's your favorite character, Dak?
I would say I really like Mara. I named my dog after Ada 1. which I love Ada's character, just because it's like a antithesis character. But I think Mara is much like the Witness in the sense that her plans take place over centuries, not short-term plans. Which, watching Dune recently and really getting involved with Dune again and recently, it reminds me a lot. I think that where they got the inspiration for her character, because ironically enough, a lot of what we get out of Destiny is inspired by Dune. So I think that maybe where her character's kind of development came out of is very similar to the Bene Gesserit from Dune, in the sense that their characters are very, it seems on the surface level that they have very specific intentions, when in reality behind the scenes they have other intentions. And one of the things that the Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother says in Dune, I think in both the book and the movie, is that our plans take centuries, not days, not weeks, not years. And so it's a very similar thing with what we get with Mara. She seems like she's very focused singularly on just her people, but in reality, she sees the bigger picture because she's both an entity of dark and light. So I love Mara. I love her character. I love what they've done with her character. I can't wait to see what they continue to do with her character, especially going into the final shape, which is going to be our last expansion. But yeah, Kyle, we just glazed over like half the game in such a short period.
Yeah, but I'm thinking back, like we didn't touch on the Vex at all.
No,
we didn't talk about them at all. It's an entire race of enemy. It's the first raid was Vex themed.
Yeah.
We didn't even speak about them.
Is there no Destiny 3? They're just done after the next expansion, or
I don't really know.
you don't know? Okay.
They're calling this the Light and Dark Saga. That's the official company line. This is the Light and Dark Saga.
Okay.
And that's going to end with the final shape. So every year we get an expansion, which is like the yearly overhaul, and then we get every third month we get a season. So we get 4 seasons plus an expansion every year. So the final shape is supposed to be the final expansion next, probably February is usually when they come out. And then the Light and Dark Saga is supposed to just end, I guess. Or I mean, they have some opportunity to like expand out. I mean, I don't know what the possibilities are endless. I mean, the messaging
has been so far like all over the place. It's hard. That's why like Matt's answer keeps changing every second, because the messaging that we've got from Bungie has changed so frequently. Matt, I feel like the most recent bit that we got was that because we weren't supposed to get this expansion that we just got the way we got it. Like back when Witch Queen, or before Witch Queen came out, it was only supposed to be it was only supposed to be 3 more expansions. Back when they launched Beyond Light, they gave us a little bit of a roadmap of what to expect for the rest of the story for what they were wanting to do with Destiny. And at that time, they only gave us 2 more expansions. You had the Witch Queen and then the Final Shape, or Lightfall is what they called it. And then it switched to where Lightfall was going to switch to its own kind of thing, and then they were going to do the Final Shape as like the finale to the story. They said that they're going to wrap up the Light and Dark Saga, but that it's not going to be the end for gamers to play within the Destiny universe. So I'm assuming what's going to happen, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming what's going to happen is that we're going to get to the finale in some capacity with the Witness, and then maybe they're going to do what they did with Destiny 1, which is not release legacy content, but create replayability within the game after the game and some sort of like season of triumph or something like that. I mean, like kind of like what we talked about maybe the very first episode. Obviously they're going to start putting all of their eggs into the basket of Marathon once this starts to wrap up. So I would venture to say that we are kind of looking at the end of the Destiny story, but I would think that they would probably release some of the older content as well. One of the things that we skipped over that they did is back in 2019, the game was at its peak with how big the game was. We had 11 planets to travel to.
I don't know. Was it that many?
It was a lot. I mean, remember back to the loading, or not the loading screen, but the map screen was intense.
Yeah.
It was a large number. Maybe not 11, but it was a large number. So we would have all these different planets that you would go to for like one mission or one story, and then you would never go back. So what they did is they called it the Destiny Vault Content, or Destiny Content Vault, the DCV. And so what they would do is they would put stuff in the vault and then maybe later pull it back out for us to enjoy as just like a side little thing to enjoy. They've done that with like raids, dungeons, stuff like that. So my assumption, based on the fact that like a lot of this content that we're talking about is not stuff that you could even go and play right now because it's in the vault. I would venture to say that the way that they're going to make this game replayable is they're going to either release an edition that has everything from start to finish, meaning like Destiny 2 from when we started to wherever we're at the end of it, or they're just going to kind of create the replayability is just to cycle feed us that content kind of over and over and over again. But I don't know. We're kind of closing it out. I don't know what all of us and our friend here, I mean, what are we going to do?
I don't know.
I haven't played with you guys for the past like half year, but I mean, even when I get back, I feel like you guys are having to catch me up on so much shit that I missed. Like, what are we going to do afterwards?
A lot. Yeah.
What are we going to do? Play like fucking Warzone?
Yeah.
What are we going to do? Go play, I don't know, what's another game that's popular right now? I can't even think of it.
Fortnite? I don't know.
Yeah, Fortnite. Diablo 4. Yeah. I mean, come on.
That is pretty popular, actually. A lot of the guys
play. You played Baldur's Gate when it comes out.
Oh, there we go. I don't even know what that is still. You and Cole talked about it last week.
Look it up. Look it up.
But yeah, that's our haphazard shit show version of Destiny.
So, like, if I wanted to, like, jump in and play it tomorrow...
Nope, don't bother.
Don't
do it. No, do it. Okay.
No, I would recommend. So yeah. In all seriousness, for this, Bungie has a huge problem with this game. It's too big. There's too much has gone on.
Yeah.
You've got 7 years, like I talked about, 7 years of weekly content, and probably 3/4 of it isn't even in the game anymore.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna have.
Okay.
This is like a running joke with the community, the Destiny community, is that like the new player experience is horrible because you have no frame of reference. At the same time, it's like how do you tell 7 years worth of story to someone who's like, so there's like I said, D2, like the vanilla campaign, what came out when D2 launched is not playable anymore. Half the
in
stuff
any capacity. Yeah.
The missions are gone. Some of the most of the destinations are in the Destiny content vault.
Yeah.
So you can't even go to them. They try not to reference those characters a ton, I think, specifically because they don't want new players to be lost. But it is like, it's daunting. And the other thing is that there's this huge controversy recently with the monetization that the game has gone through, and the microtransactions and how prevalent they've been, and to get all of the playable content that still exists in the game, as even it's in its reduced form, was like $300 and something. Is that what it is, Dak?
It's more than that. Somebody did the math on this.
Wow.
I'll have to look it up. Somebody literally did do the math on that to try and figure out like what it cost.
So while he's looking that up, I mean, they've created they call it free to play. It's not free to play. It's free to try.
Yeah.
It's free to experience the game in its like most baseline form. If you wanted to, you could do that. That is free, and you could get like with the gunplay, and you can kind of see some of the world building that they've done. And then if that interests you, you could just buy like specific expansions or things. And obviously, I'm sure Dak will be able to tell you what to get or to not get. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough getting into right now because it's while the gunplay and the gameplay is like crucial to how good the game feels, it's a lore-driven game, at least in my opinion.
And most of the lore is gone at this point, right?
All the lore's gone. Like you can't. Most of the stuff I talked about doesn't exist in the game. My favorite character is dead, and he's a raid boss, but it's sort of the way Bungie always talks about, it's like a snapshot in time. It's like it's not really part of the current story, but you can go back and play it if you want.
Yeah.
But you'll have like no context of who this person is and why they're important and why they're so, why having them being the big bad of the raid is like so incredible that you're able to fight him and take him down. So yeah. I don't know. It's a tough one to get into.
I think also, I think it's a challenge. It's hard for me to want to recommend people to play the game unless they have friends to play with. I mean, I think for me, part of the reason why the game means so much to me is just because for a number of years, that was my social escape. That's where I had my friends. That's where I hung out with my people. That's where, the people that knew all this shit about me, that's where they were at. I would say that if you were to just go to the PlayStation Store, pick it up a copy, you would not enjoy it if you just jumped in and just played by yourself. Part of it is, like Matt just said, because of it's not even a fire hose at that point. It's like a tsunami of information. What? Why is that?
Did what you see the hell?
That was weird. I don't know why I did that. It's not like a fire hose trying to drink from a fucking fire hose. It's like having a tsunami just bombard you while did it do it again? It's like having a tsunami bombard you and then a electrical storm comes and then like you get struck with lightning like 17 times. That's what trying to play the game is right now. There's just so much shit that like you don't know about, or even when it presents it to you, like you're not going to be able to understand what you're doing, because the way that they make the experience for New Light players is what is called New Light, is just go here, do this, shoot this many enemies, come to this place, shoot this many enemies, use your abilities to do this. Like there's no cohesion to the story like what you used to get out of Destiny 2. And Destiny 2, you could start off on the game and not ever have played Destiny 1 and still understand what's going on. You can't do that now. For you to do that now, I mean, you have to have somebody like Matt or myself, somebody who knows about the game, somebody who has played it for a very long time, and somebody who can explain some of this shit out. One of the things that we actually did for a while before we got the newest content that we got, one of the things they did before they started vaulting everything, because they told us they were going to do it, is they kind of just made it to where you could replay a lot of things like raids, dungeons, all that type of stuff with no restrictions anymore. So it used to be where if you played a raid once, that's it. You got your prestige, or you got your high level gear. That's all you got for the week. You couldn't go back and play it again and get anything out of it. But then they changed that and made it really fun for people to go back and just replay the same content. So what our group would do was for about a month or two, for at least 1 or 2 nights of the week, we would all just pretty much just get drunk and then carry random people through LFG looking for gamers. We would just like find random people on LFG that wanted to like go do a raid, and then we would take them through that raid. So it created this like sense of camaraderie, but even then there was a lot of people that played with us who didn't understand what we were doing. So then you had lore nerds like Matt who were able to explain everything out to make that experience more enjoyable. And I would say that for New Light players, that's what's missing. It's hard for you to want to dive into this content. It's hard for you to want to really feel like you're a part of the boss fight and understand what you are doing as a guardian and what's, air quotes, at stake, because you don't get all that backstory. You don't get to understand what's going on behind that, to where you could go in and do something like the Last Wish raid and be like, oh, look, it's pretty and it's got cool music. And that's what you're going to take away from the raid, not understanding what you're doing, going through the motions and understanding how important it is as to what you're doing behind it. So that's kind of the challenge that Destiny has right now. So it is hard. It's hard for new people to jump in. It's hard for people to want to jump in and want to be as fervent and as zealous as the rest of us are about the game. And then on the inverse, it's hard to keep all of us who have been very into the game remaining into the game, because it's hard after so many years of us getting content. It's hard to continue to feed us the content where it feels like it's new, because maybe this thing that we just got released was the same thing or a similar thing that they released fucking 5 years ago, but in our minds we're like, oh well, this is just like that last activity. So it's a really big challenge, and I think that that's where the game needs to come to a close, because it is starting to become cyclical in a sense that it's hard to give us new stuff. Even if you change the story behind it, it's hard to give us new stuff and us not think back to content that we got the season before or the expansion before. It's very challenging.
Yeah, I didn't mean to be like talk about this game for like 2 hours and they're like, nah, don't bother.
Yeah.
But it is. You're right. It's tough to dive in, I will say, unless you have some. I mean, this game is made like light years better by playing with friends.
Yes.
See, it's 100% why I continue to play with the amount that I play. I mean, I want to level my character up and get all the best gear that I can, because I want to do like the super challenging content with my friends.
Yeah.
Like that's what my like gaming experience with it has become. I mean, there's like a lot of challenges and like triumphs and things that they set up where you can like, it's like checklist stuff where, you know, kill this many enemies or like do this activity so many times without dying or whatever. But at the end of the day, the thing that like really like gets me excited is doing the most challenging content with a group of people and, you know, beating it. Right. And so like that's, besides like the lore beats, which are also incredible, that's like the main driver for me now. And I don't know, but getting to that point, or like even just like ramping up with a friend, it's just like your game experience is gonna be so much better. At least if nothing else, like Dak was saying, to give you context of like what the hell's going on.
Well, I think one of the things that I think Jericho was one who said this, but like you do come for the story, you do come for the gameplay, but you stay for the friends. And there's few games, in my opinion, that do it that well, where the idea of community is so directly driven into even just the story, because even the content that we get it's not solo content. From the lore standpoint, you have your fire team, and because that's so ingrained into the mentality of the game, it creates this truly different social experience, which is hard to get in other games. Some of my best lifelong friends are people that I've met through this game. I mean, you have people like you, Matt, like Jericho, like you were two of like my core guys. I've got people like Malik, who I met through like an LFG. Like, I think I just wanted somebody to do this activity with me, and he has become one of my closest friends in life. Like, it's hard for other games to do that same level of community. Maybe the only other game that I can think of off the top of my head that does that is like WoW. I think that's it, in my opinion. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but it's like D&D. Like, you start by doing an activity, but then your friendships with these people is what creates a sense of like purpose to keep going back and keep playing. Because Matt would probably agree with me when I say this, but the content that we have right now, not great, not overtly fun, not crazy activities that I'm like, can't wait to go do this. Can't wait to go power grind for the next, 6 weeks. But your friends and going and being able to do those activities with your friends makes that like mind-numbing, close my head in a door jam kind of activity enjoyable, because you're doing it with friends. So that's what I think. But yeah, pause for like 3 seconds. I gotta go grab my laptop charger. My laptop's close to dying. BRB.
That was a lot.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. Like we barely touched on like the story too, which is nuts. 'Cause like I said, like
If it's an ongoing thing for 7 years, I don't know how you can touch on all that.
It really is crazy, because like every quarter, like every 3 months, I unveil like a new season, and the seasons are all like completely differently themed. So, there was like we had a pirate theme recently. This season is like an underwater theme. And then like all the armor and the weapons and stuff all, relate to that theming. So it's we take it for granted, I think, because we get the content so much, but it's It's pretty incredible the amount of crap that they give us, the loot that they give us to chase.
Sorry about that. Okay. All right. I'm not going to forget this time. I'm going to insert the Nerd Network news thing that you made. Because I forgot about that.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to talk about it.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, it was not great. So the biggest challenge that I was running into, though, is because I am ashamed to admit to everybody that the editing software that I was using was iMovie. That's all I could use, realistically. Which made it so hard to fucking edit the podcast and do all these, like, fun things that I wanted to do. So I did switch up the editing software to a software called Filmora, which is used by, like, a lot of, like, YouTube content creators. I think it was Jay Aubrey. Shout out to Jay Aubrey for introducing me to that. But yeah, hopefully that'll help do those like fun little things that we want to do with videos to where I don't have to spend hours trying to edit different things.
Yeah, dude, I didn't even know you were using iMovie. That's insane.
That's why it was kind of a challenge where when stuff went wrong, it wasn't an easy fix. So.
Right. That's like using like Windows Movie Maker or some shit.
Literally though. So we have a little bit to talk about this week with Nerd Network news. To keep it Destiny. Matt, were you able to read the Globberin Time article with the fake boss Glorbo? So
Globber time.
Yeah. So Destiny 2 players. So this was something that's been happening in the WoW community for a little bit, where they would try and trick AI into creating like fake news articles based on fake information. So they did it with WoW, which was create this fake boss that was supposedly a hidden boss called Glorbo. But they did it with Destiny over this past week as well. So I think it was a Redditor named Rasputin the Warmind posted a thread talking about Glorbo, the secret boss, has been the best content that I've played in a while, which for those of you guys who are Destiny fans would understand that Reddit is a scary, dark, deplorable place for the Destiny community. It is not great. And I know that that's true about like games in total and like culture in total. Like Reddit culture is not
Reddit
fantastic. But like
it's like so much worse than Twitter. It's like incredible. It's tenfold worse.
But like specifically with the Destiny community, that's where they just like throw out all sense of decency and just start like making death threats to like the devs. But part of the complaint that we've gotten since Beyond Light, the most recent expansion that we have, part of the complaint that we've had is that they're not having like originality behind the content that they're releasing, or at least it felt like the content that they're releasing was like trickle fed as a means to just get to the next expansion that they're doing. So I think that that's part of the reason why it hit the Destiny community so intensely. But once you read on a little bit more, it just leaves all sense of reality, and I question how so many people fell for it. Part of what they said was that ever since we found out about the new secret boss Glub Glub back in the season of the Tokyo Drifter, there's been more and more hints that he has a brother. This is them trying to like create and build upon the lore of like who this enemy is going to be. So it got picked up by AI news, like AI quote unquote journalists. Part of it is like satire, something that the WoW community created, or not created, but realized is that some of this content, some of these articles are actually completely written by AI technology where they take tiny little bits that they've maybe seen on social media and then create fake news articles surrounding it to try and say this is like leaked information. And so that's what they did with this one. They tried saying that Glorbo was going to be the new secret boss and it was leaked out information. And they tricked multiple, I think, what was it? 4 or 5 different news agencies picked up on it. And it was all fake. It wasn't even real. Fake Glorbo.
Yeah, so just so you know, there's a character in the game called the Drifter.
Yes.
So the Tokyo Drifter.
It was called the Season of the Drifter. Was how we got. That's how we found out more about his character. So Season of the Tokyo Drifter.
It's so stupid.
So stupid, but it's good. They tricked AI. They got news agencies to pick it up and publish it, thinking that it was real. Yeah. Next up, Twitter got changed from Twitter to X, because that makes sense. You want to know why? X is Elon Musk's favorite letter. It's his favorite letter because that's normal. An adult, a grown man, has a favorite letter. And that grown man feels the need to create content based on his favorite letter. So I don't know what the fuck's going on at Twitter. I don't think anybody knows what the fuck's going on at Twitter. I think people on Twitter don't know what the fuck's going on at Twitter. But I guess we'll see. I don't know if it's just like linked specifically just to the parent company, like the company Twitter is now going to be called X, or if they're just straight up just changing the entire social media platform to no longer be called Twitter and call it X. Who knows? But hey, when you're Elon Musk, apparently you can just do whatever the fuck you want. Which fintech bro Matt would know all about that, wouldn't he?
I mean, the logo on my phone still is the bird, so...
I know. It's weird. So there's no rhyme or reason, but yeah, they're changing it, erasing Twitter. I don't know why. I feel like that's going to do nothing except cause massive harms and probably get Twitter shut down within a few years because it goes bankrupt. Next up.
There's also an issue with, like, didn't Microsoft already has, like, a patent on X or something, or trademark on
Probably.
X in the technology space? So,
yeah.
Like
most things.
I saw something, the lawyer said they're 100% going to get sued on this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like most things when it comes to Elon Musk, he just kind of does it and just hopes for the best. And anybody that discredits it are just haters. And when somebody probably tells him, like, hey, legally you can't do this, he probably is just going to fire him because that's what he did with like half their staff. But hey, I guess when you're the world's richest man, you can do whatever you want. Because society and years of history have taught us that. Acolyte, the Acolyte. So Kyle and I need to take a little bit of a step back. I think we previously reported the several rumors, and this was pretty several news agencies were reporting that the Acolyte was supposedly cut by Disney. The reason that gave it more credence was because fucking Bob Iger was kind of like, yeah, we're going to cut back the Star Wars content. So it was inconvenient timing. But we all kind of thought that maybe they were putting that back on the back burner yet again, kind of like they did with the Skeleton Crew. But this past week, it came out that the budget has been released for the show. Do you remember the total, Kyle?
Nope.
40 Glorbo. Just kidding. 40 million. 40 million fucking dollars, I think. Yeah, 49 million dollars.
49
million
is
dollars.
more than Rogue One, less than Andor.
Less than Andor by a very small fraction, because Andor was like what, 56 or something.
Yeah,
I say that by a small margin, and that's still $7 million.
so it's a lot.
Lying around in your pencil drawer back.
Okay, listen, Matt, who owns a Tesla. I'm sorry. I got thrown off because I was thinking about the snap that you sent me the other day, which is, yeah, I can use both my hands. You want to know why? Anyways, so acolytes, as far as what we can tell, it's still a thing that's happening. And the fact that they have such a large budget is very interesting, given the next bit of Nerd Network news, which now that we know the ballooned and very large portion of money that they have, it has actually also came out that the movie, or sorry, that the Acolyte show is going to be set a little bit before, not by a little bit, a lot, by about 100 plus years before the Phantom Menace. It's going to be set during the High Republic era, but you know what there's going to be a lack of? Pew, 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 pew.
Blasting.
Yep. No guns in the entire series. Supposedly, purportedly.
Cool. Use lightsabers. Do it.
All lightsabers and force abilities. I was also, I think in this article, it also said that they're going to be trying to use minimal CGI as well.
I saw that.
They're going to try and go
cool.
more of like the Andor approach, where they're going to try and do as much live action as they possibly can, knowing that, of course, they're going to have to use CGI in some capacity. Mm-hmm. It also came out that they're going to try to not use the wraparound screen as well. They're going to try to avoid that if they can.
Oh, right.
Okay, next up, let's do a trigger warning. We're going to be talking about suicide. So if that is triggering to you, skip over the next few minutes and we'll talk to you guys soon. I will put up on the screen, and then I'll also enter in auditorily here when to skip to. Anyways, so this is a little bit more than just the story. This is a little bit more of an important thing to talk about. Matt, I kind of found it ironic that I read this story this weekend, just because it is also a very fresh thing that we're dealing with in the Destiny community. So, Jar Jar Binks is a very complex character, and it is a hard character to talk about because, again, the issue surrounding Jar Jar Binks is very complex. A very, very large number of people in the African American community, rightfully so, when the Phantom Menace came out, talked about how Jar Jar Binks' character is very akin to blackface, in the sense that it's creating this overly caricatured character. And specifically at the time, this was the first time we got a black voiced character, or at least a character that was done by an African American, and that was going to be like the push behind Jar Jar Binks' character. And instead what we got was just, like I said, a very over caricatured character. That's not the actor. The actor was playing a role. George Lucas and the other writers were the ones who created, in my opinion, the monstrosity that is Jar Jar Binks. The reason why, from a historical standpoint, is more than just somebody who sounds weird and speaks weird. There is a lot of history behind why people are frustrated with Jar Jar Binks' character. In the film industry, this, we'll call it blackface because it pretty much was, didn't serve a purpose to transform somebody from white to black. It was done so in a comical way, which is very similar to what we got out of Jar Jar Binks. A character who's just dumb, who's, flimsy, just creates all these issues, and who's just like the joke of a sidekick. People, rightfully so, got very upset, and people who rightfully so were very vocal about their upsetness behind Jar Jar Binks' character. But what everyone forgot about is how that actually affects the actor that played the character. So unfortunately, this news article came out on Deadline this past week, and the actor who played Jar Jar Binks talked about a very, very hard time in his life after the first few movies came out in the prequel series. He got to the point where it was so difficult because of the death threats that he was receiving, because of the constant vitriol that he was getting. It got so bad that he was not even able to leave his own home without being harassed. He got to the point where because the intensity of people's emotions surrounding it got so intense that it caused him to, at very specific points, contemplate committing suicide. The reason why I say this is interesting is because we're seeing very similar things coming out of the devs that we have with Destiny. Specifically, the people that are content, or not content, but community managers, I think is what they call them. Listeners, this is a reminder that anybody that is an actor is playing a role. Most of the time, these actors don't necessarily know what their character is going to end up being in the movie that they are until after the fact. Specifically, this actor knew that he was playing a character, but even he at the time did not understand how much of a pantomime his character would be. So, that being said, obviously he got to the point where, because of people's intense emotions, he felt like his best solution was to remove himself from the equation, which no actor should ever get to that point, especially in something like Star Wars. Like, I hate saying it like this, but like, it'd be one thing if it affected somebody the way that it affects actors on movies like Quentin Tarantino movies, where they use racial terms pretty liberally. Or, for example, Benedict Cumberbatch in 12 Years a Slave. He said that movie caused him to have like serious, because of the character that he was playing, it caused him to have like serious mental health issues for a while after that movie, because he was having difficulties realizing that the character that he was playing was not the person that he is. Actors get very, very involved in their craft. And when somebody turns a character like Jar Jar Binks, who we can all agree was not a great character, and who we can all agree was a very flawed character, the fact that people were not able to separate him as the actor versus the character to the point where he wanted to commit suicide is just crazy. Especially in Star Wars. And I don't say that lightheartedly, but like, it's Star Wars. It's not... Like, it's Star Wars. This is a happy place. It's a cool, fun environment. I think what they mentioned in this article is the way that he felt redeemed, or the way that he felt like he was able to grapple a lot of this, was his character that he played, Caloran Beck, in The Mandalorian. And it's going to be awesome to see what they do with the character, because I think he's even in season 4. I think it's been confirmed that they're bringing more Caloran Beck back to the fold.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts? I know that that's a complex issue. I know that that's kind of a sensitive issue, but I think it's prevalent. I mean, Matt, you can probably speak to a little bit more with the Destiny community, since you've been playing Destiny more recently than I have. But like, the devs, they're getting like death threats to the point where like one of the community managers stepped down entirely because of the hate that he was getting from the people that he did this job because he loved it. But yeah,
I have a searing fire of hate for these kind of people. I really do. It's
yeah.
I don't even know how to. I just I don't know. This is like the worst of the worst, and it's like hidden behind the anonymity of the internet too.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just, it's incredible to me that someone could be that overreaching and thinking that they have the right to do something like that. Like, I'm all for like, hey, if you spent money on a game and the game sucked, or like, I'm trying to think like Anthem when that came out, like I'd be pissed, but I can't imagine myself ever like harassing the devs or the companies or anything. Like, I don't know, man, just, it's not worth it. It's like I don't know. I don't even know. Like, it boggles my mind that people are able to do this kind of stuff. And we lose people like the community manager that you're speaking about, who was awesome. And, because of the buildup of all the scumbags who were doing this, and then that one guy who was doing all that really sketchy stuff with him and his wife.
Oh,
And
yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. So it's,
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't fathom that people like that exist and that they think it's okay that what they're doing is justified, or maybe they're like heroes in their own story. It's crazy to me.
Well, and think of it like the people that do this because they care and because they love it. Like Deej is who we're talking about here, which Deej for the Destiny community, I mean, he's been our community manager. He's been the community manager. He's been the public face of the game, the guy that checks in with us every single week for years. And he stayed with Bungie and he stayed with Destiny because he loved it and loved what he did. And it got so bad, which part of it was before this, Bungie had not taken the appropriate approach to mental health. But Deej left because he was getting harassed. I mean, he was like, not only were they getting death threats, they were getting specific death threats. They were getting he was having pictures of him and his wife sent to him by like random people. Like it was sketchy. Very similar thing happened with this actor where he was, people found out where he lived in New York. So people were waiting outside of his house just to harass him. Like when you get to that point, like, bro,
how scary would that be?
Yeah.
Right.
Terrifying.
I don't know. I can't. Yeah.
I mean,
it's completely and utterly inexcusable behavior on no level at all.
I mean, part of like our anonymity with like the podcast is for safety, right? Like Kyle's part of the reason why we were trying to be a little bit more anonymous with this, because I know that Kyle and I both would love to share huge aspects of our lives with you guys. But with Kyle, it's the safety of his family. It's crazy that like we have to like be this way, like especially as content creators. When we create content like this, where it's just like guys hanging out talking, like we want to be able to share every aspect of our lives. But like for me, I mean, I don't fucking care because I'm single. I don't have kids. I don't plan on having kids. All I have is a dog. But, for Kyle, like this is creating safety situations for his children, for us to be talking about stuff, because people just go to the extreme and people can take something as simplistic as this and turn it into something it's not supposed to be. With Destiny, they take something as simplistic as a guy who is supposed to be the spokesperson to tell you what's going on, then turns into like the reason why everything's wrong with a game. Like they blame Deej and say like we should send death threats to Deej and give him very specific ways. Like it was scary. But I don't know. Kyle, what do you think?
It's that he thought that was the only way out. Like, Star Wars is a movie for children.
Yep.
Like, I get, it's probably, the people that were doing that is probably a big part of their childhood. They connected with the original trilogy, all that shit. But it's like, if a guy wants to kill himself over the hate he's getting for a part in a movie, like, that's ridiculous. And he's not the only one. It's like, both Anakin actors got shit on immensely, and I'm sure that, I mean, obviously Jake Lloyd's had his mental issues and hasn't really come back into the fold, but Hayden Christensen now coming back and seeing that, he's actually a beloved character now. It's a big thing, but I'm glad Ahmed Best is getting to come back now too.
Yeah.
Joffrey from Game of Thrones too. Like he stepped away from acting because I don't like people hate me. Yeah. I'm like, I'm not the guy. I'm just playing a character.
Yeah, he's just playing the guy. Playing the guy very, very well too.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, if anything, if you hate the guy, if you hate that character so much, that guy
doing his job right,
because he did exactly what he was supposed to do.
And it's interesting that we were talking about specifically that. Like it's this conversation surrounding this is kind of like an ebb and flow kind of thing, right? But it's interesting that we specifically talk about that because as watching Suits recently, again, this is weird, tangent. Watching Suits recently, I have noticed that a lot of the severe hate that Meghan Markle gets is just fabricated. It's just fake. A lot of like this mentality of like who she is as a person to the core of her being is because people's frame of reference to who Meghan Markle is before she got married to Prince Harry was Suits, like was her as an actress. So like a lot of these things that people like have as like, oh, Meghan Markle's blah, 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 is just because they see her as a character on Suits and say, well, this character's Meghan Markle. Exact same thing here. They look at this and they say that like this person played a character and they did XYZ, so they must be this person that I hate and feel the need to send death threats to. But
I think it's very obvious. Like, we don't like the sequel trilogy that much.
Yeah.
Do I want J.J. Abrams to jump off a bridge? Do I want Daisy Ridley to shoot herself in the face? No. Absolutely fucking not.
Because at the end of the day, this is Star Wars. Like, this is so small potatoes compared to other stuff. But, I don't know.
I just get... The guy's, it's a CGI character. It's not even like, it's not even a human. It's a humanoid alien. Like,
yeah, but that's what, crazy. Like, in the mid 2000s, whenever he was trying to respond to all of this, he was like, I didn't even know what was going to happen with this character. He didn't know what his character was going to look like. He didn't know all of this type of stuff. He's a voice actor. He was just doing his job. Again, it wasn't him. It was the directors. I mean, as much as I love Star Wars, we can't argue, like, George Lucas has a history of being kind of racist. But that's not the actor's fault. We're not going and, like, blowing down Mark Hamill's door and trying to kill him because he was part of a project where the people writing the story or the people doing it did some bad stuff, wrote a bad character, made a pantomime of a character. I don't know. All of that being said, anybody who's listening, first off, understand that if you ever get to that point, if you ever feel like you can't do it anymore and you feel like it's all too much and your solution is suicide, first off, understand that both of your hosts, normal hosts for this podcast, have been in that exact same position. Both of us have had those thoughts. Both of us have gotten to that point in our lives where we felt like that was the solution. The difference is that that's not the solution. As somebody who struggles with it constantly, I still deal with depression. A fucking 28-year-old who lives at his mom's house is not ideal, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff in my life that leads me to be naturally depressed because things aren't going super well. But, one, I have a great and amazing support network. I have amazing friends who do understand my struggles with depression and understand and know my nuances and know when they need to intervene. But I also have got friends where I feel like I can go and talk to them. I can talk to them and be honest with them and be where I'm at. I also have therapy. I know a lot of people can't afford that. I totally get that. I can't even afford it. If I didn't have insurance, I wouldn't be able to afford it. But all of that being said, if you ever get to that point, if you ever feel like you don't have any in or out, and that is your only solution in life, there are amazing resources in America. Do not feel ashamed for dialing the suicide support line. I have had to do it myself in my adulthood. Moreover, you have two people who have survived through it. And although Kyle and myself are by no means professionals surrounding mental health, we would at least be able to help, and we'd at least be able to be a listening ear and potentially get you the help that you need. So if you feel like that is the solution that you want to go down, if you feel like that is your only solution, or you feel like that is the only thing that you can see as a foreseeable outcome to your life, please feel free to reach out to myself or Kyle. We would love to get you connected with the resources that you need. And moreover, if you're a dickbag who feels the need to harass somebody over things like a video game or a movie or a show, you need to get a fucking life. Go touch some grass. Get out of your house. Realize that there's more than just you that exist. I don't understand why you feel the need to be that way. None of us do. But you should stop. Stop being a douche. Stop being a little asshole. Like, come on. It's just, it's disappointing. It's disappointing that we have people whose acting careers are being cut short because of the way that people are fucking acting. Oh, are we going to talk about the fact that Hayden Christensen dipped out of acting himself and bought a farm and then became a farmer because he couldn't take it anymore? Like, come on. I get that we're not the ones rolling in millions of dollars because of movies, but this is still their job. And imagine, like in my circumstance as a customer service person, imagine if a customer was so mean to me that I felt like my only solution was suicide. Everyone would be looking at that customer and being like, that person's overreacting. But why do we just like let this get away? Like, why do we let people get away with it? I mean, Matt and the Destiny community, looking at fucking Twitter, looking at Reddit, why is everybody else in the community not pointing that out and being like, stop doing this? This is not okay. It's the same thing. If you see people doing that shit, call it out and shut it down because it has serious harms. It's not playful little internet banter. It has serious harms. And this is the proof of that. I'll step off my soapbox. Anybody else have any closing thoughts before we move on?
Ooh, you got the nail right on the head there.
Yeah. Okay. The last little 2 bits that we got. Dave Filoni, our boy, Master Hat and Master Hat. I always love it. I love when people interview him because, like, David Filoni doesn't give. He's the honey badger of Disney content. He
Doesn't
probably
give a shit.
he doesn't. He's probably like anybody can ask him a question. He's like, oh, let's answer it. When other people would be like, Dave, don't do that. Don't answer that. If you tell them who your favorite Star Wars character is, then it's gonna blah 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 blah. He doesn't fucking care. It's Dave Filoni. He wears a hat, fucking Indiana Jones hat every chance that he gets. So he came out and said who he thinks the greatest Jedi is of all time. And I don't know if either of you guys read the article, but could you take a guess as to who he thinks?
Well, I read it, so I already know.
What about you, Matt? If you could think David Filoni, our new version of George Lucas.
His favorite is?
Yeah.
Or who the strongest is?
No, just who his favorite character is. Who's the character that he's enjoyed the most writing about and expanding upon?
Oh, God. I don't know. I'm going to butcher this. Ahsoka?
Well, so it's a fair guess because that's, it was the Ahsoka.
Good guess.
Yeah. Ahsoka's who he was kind of creating up, but it's actually Anakin Skywalker, which makes sense. Especially because one could argue that the reason why David Filoni became David Filoni is because of the Clone Wars and what he did with Anakin's character and what he did with expanding upon the character that all of us kind of felt like was cut too short. That being said as well, though,
Literally.
Ahsoka is literally 100% his creation. So I would say that that's pretty far up there for him as well. But yeah, I mean, he's even done such a good job with Anakin, as Kyle has pointed out multiple times, that like even Anakin is like, I really appreciate what you did to my character. But yeah, this is kind of fun little tidbit. But he did say Anakin, a lot of the reason why is just because he liked the overarching story that we've gotten with Anakin, that we had somebody who we got introduced to that was super bad, and then we got to see his backstory, and then we know how he became super bad and remained super bad, and then at the very end of the story, we find out that he actually does still have a heart, and yeah, just makes sense.
Well, do you agree with Dave Filoni that he's the best Jedi?
I do, yeah. Even though he's not on the top of my list, I do think that Anakin, as far as Star Wars characters goes, is probably one of the best written characters as to what we have now, knowing the overarching story. I don't like that it's come at the expense of Luke Skywalker, but, I do like it. I think specifically, like everyone else says, I think specifically the Clone Wars is what made me fall in love with Anakin's character and understand his character more. The only other person or the only other character that I could think of that maybe is no, I can't even say better character. I was going to say Obi-Wan's up on that list, but I don't know if he's a better character than Anakin. I don't know. What else? Next up, fun little tidbit talking about Obi-Wan. So part of what we've enjoyed with a lot of the Disney's version of Star Wars content is the throwbacks, the little tiny bits that we get as random little appearances in the show. One of them, if you recall, was in Obi-Wan Kenobi whenever he was on, what planet was it? He was on that planet and he ran into a clone who was a homeless clone who was just asking for donations.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of questions surrounding like which clone was this, because usually Star Wars does not present us with a clone unless that clone has a specific name and unless that clone has a specific story or a specific thing that we want to see behind the story. So I think there was a lot of speculation surrounding that. People thought perhaps maybe it was Commander Cody. People thought maybe it was Rex. Like there was a lot of questions surrounding it. But they finally came out and found out who this quote unquote veteran clone trooper was. Especially because he was wearing 501st armor, which means he would have had like a much more significance as a clone trooper. But his character's name is actually Nax. And he was a survivor of the Clone Wars battle of Teth, Chrysophysis, and Umbara, which, Kyle, you and I knowing a lot of Star Wars Nord, the fact that he survived Umbara is pretty fucking cool. Because I was like, wasn't that considered like the worst losses or the highest losses within the Clone Wars? Yeah. So just kind of interesting. It's interesting that, again, that they can just do simplistic, tiny little tidbits like there that tie somebody back in with all the other shit that we're watching.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I think it would have been interesting if it was Cody, because that's the one who shot him down.
Yeah.
But either way.
Yeah. I was hoping when I saw him, I was hoping that they were going to bleed it into the story kind of like they did with, that they were going to somehow reach it back around with that, kind of like they did with Rebels, where we got to see, Rex again with Ahsoka. But anyways, yeah, we covered a lot of ground this episode.
Yes. Oh yeah.
A lot. Yeah. Anything else? Anything you guys want to add? Any little Nerd Network news or little tidbits? Just the tips.
Yeah, I know. Kind of similar to Destiny with their seasons. Assassin's Creed Valhalla has kind of had that, but more based on holidays and stuff.
Yeah.
They are shutting all that down like immediately, so you can't go back and play any of it. But they're doing that because they're about to put out all these new games. But there was a lot of like season quests that you just cannot do.
Can't do it anymore.
If someone mentions it, you have no idea what the hell they're talking about.
And Valhalla has a lot of content. Valhalla is a huge fucking game.
And then it's huge. And then with that, I don't know if it was you who sent me the article or someone else, but kind of touches on Valhalla as well, is that developers of Outlaws said they weren't going to make it this 300-hour big game that no one can complete like Valhalla was.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think like start to finish, it was like something like 346 hours is what it was going to take for somebody to complete all of the content behind Valhalla, which even Valhalla was
insane. I couldn't finish it.
No, I mean, even, what was the other one? Odyssey had like 296 hours or something like that worth of content that you had to play through.
It's, too much.
Outlaws, hopefully, I mean, I think they're going to do it different. They're going to do it more nuanced where it creates replayability. But I don't know. I mean, I just haven't, to be honest with you, I haven't even turned my Xbox on since I finished Survivor. So it would be interesting. I might jump into it tonight and just see like how fun it is now that we've completed the game. But that's the challenge, man. That's where it's hard. And that's why I have to have such an appreciation for Bungie, because it's hard. It's hard to create a game that people will want to go back and play every single day for years. I mean, again, it's crazy. It's just crazy to me. Up until this past year, I literally did play Destiny every single day when I would get home, up in like the minus going on vacations or traveling someplace. I mean, it's insane. So it's a challenge, and that's where, I have immense respect for them. But sometimes they do shit and I'm just like, bro, like Anthem, like I don't have any, there's no part of me for BioWare that's like, oh, well, they tried, it's okay. you know, it's a challenge. So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see where games continue to go now that we're getting much better technology behind like game development and gameplay. But it's interesting because I just don't know what they can do to create this mentality that we've kind of gotten from some games for years now. What about you, Matt? You got anything fun, crazy that's happened?
No.
News-wise?
Well, status quo.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, this has been a pretty long episode. Thank you guys, everybody, for hanging out and listening to us. I'm going to let Kyle do the outro this week.
Sure. Yeah, it was kind of cool to, as someone who hasn't no experience with Destiny, like to hear the lore setting, kind of hear about the score. But I think honestly, the coolest thing is just the community you guys have been a part of, and like I'm sure there's many others like that. I think that's the coolest part of the game that I heard the whole day is that.
Yeah.
Like
that's like your Dungeons and Dragons. You guys were talking about that last week, right? It's the same thing, right? So it's all about bringing people together. And during COVID, it was like a lifesaver.
Yeah.
You got that like kind of social interaction when you couldn't have the face to face. So yeah, for sure, it's a massive part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say especially because for some of us, I mean, we spent more time together playing video games than maybe we have spent seeing our family. I mean, especially when I lived in the mountains. Let's just talk to myself again. Especially when I lived in the mountains. I mean, those nights where I would play video games with you guys, that was my social interaction. Kyle, I mean, I wasn't allowed to hang out with you guys. I wasn't allowed to go do stuff with any of you guys. So I often would get off work and go home and do nothing except play Destiny with these fucking idiots. What are you gonna do? But yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. This has been episode
9.
There we go. That's what we need you for.
The Nerd Awakens.
Which episode? Yeah, the Nerd Awakens. All of that being said, please remember, you matter, you're important, and we love you. And if nobody tells you this week, we're glad you're here and you matter to us. So please don't let the haters make you want to get to the point that our friend actor did it.
Sure.
Do you want to say anything to say goodbye, little Matt?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is awesome. I had a blast. You guys ever want to have me back on to nerd out about Destiny or anything else? I'm down.
We'll add you to the catalog.
Thanks for being on, man.
Yeah. What are we gonna? We need to come up with a name with them. What are we gonna call them? Not like featured guests. We need to come up with some sort of name for people like Cole and Matt.
Correspondence.
Of course.
Nerdespondence.
Nerdespondence. Okay. Well, I'm gonna edit that out and then make it seem like it's my idea, guys. Nerdespondence. That's the beauty of being the editor. I have the power.
Come to you live in the nerd field.
In the nerd field. All right, guys, I love you. I need to go take a shit, so I'm gonna go.
Okay. Bye.
That's a really typical Dak exit there.
Perfect.
Bye, guys.